Sonny Dykes looking for answers to DJ Giddens. No response here. Giddens to the house.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Missouri still trying to get set from the end zone. Cook throws one. It's intercepted. House call for Major Burns. And LSU is going to escape Columbia with a win.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 15. Mertz pumps. Over the middle. Pearsall. Touchdown Gators.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
It's an old-school formation for West Virginia on 3rd and goal from the 2. They give it to Donaldson, and he is in for the touchdown.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Next stage for Kansas with the ball up by 3, and Jason Bean wants to throw. Deep shot. Arnold! He is gone! Oh my goodness.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
From an empty set. Ewers with pressure in his face escapes the pocket, tucks the run. Across the 25, has the first down. Stays in bounds and takes it all the way into the end zone.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon on this Tuesday, March the 12th, 365 Sports in studio out of Waco, Texas. But a show that is coast to coast because of you, because we appreciate the audience we have on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. To my right and left, Garrett Ross running the mothership. Jack McKenzie was just here. He'll be back in and out. The magician when it comes to what we do here in the studio. All right, Paul, you're the political guy. Today, Nick Saban, Alabama AD, Greg Byrne, among others, Jim Phillips from the Atlantic Coast Conference, were on, Capitol Hill, on NIL, on revenue sharing. We've got, let's go to a couple of the quotes or tweets first. From Ross Dellinger, Greg Byrne, his opening address said, if it weren't for football, we would not have 21 sports at the University of Alabama. We do not want to see college sports lose women's sports and also Olympic sports. There's one. And then also from the roundtable on Capitol Hill, Nick Saban to senators, collectives, believes that revenue sharing is a necessary in college athletics, but not employment. While the roundtable was described as NIL, it was more about employment and also revenue sharing. One more note, and I hope this is the right one with Saban. This is from Jerry Moran. They said they're very close, very, very, very close to a bill, although that's not what I heard from everybody, that there was like a 50-50 chance, and they're running out of time because there's also election coming up at the end of the year. And then there's this one comment from Saban that he made early on about how college football, the way he was brought up and what he saw when he got into it 50 years ago, it's just not the same. It is just not the same. And he was also talking about how states have different laws like it's supposed to be. So, Paul, what today was accomplished other than nothing?
I think it was smart to have Nick Saban up there. I think that was really a smart thing. There was a lot of posturing. Joe Manchin kind of sounded the alarm on, this is, NIL is killing college athletics. NIL is not killing college athletics. College athletics is killing college athletics. I mean, let's make that perfectly clear. And look, he played football like back in the 70s at West Virginia, or in college in West Virginia, and so he has the kind of the old school view of it. And if this means that they're going to pass a bill, and the only thing that Congress really needs to do to make it fair and equitable is to, like they would do with gambling, like if gambling became legal in all 50 states. And as of today, college athletics is still legal in all 50 states, correct? And the territories, all of that, it's all legal. So because it's legal in all 50 states, but everybody has different laws on the legality of different levels of NIL. So what their job should be is to make a national standard for rules that every state must follow. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Here's the national standard for rules. And set up what is the national, like whatever the national standard for revenue sharing is, and what particularly that the NCAA and the schools cannot do to screw athletes out of money that they would have rightfully earned. That's what they need to put up there and allow a track for revenue sharing. I don't believe that is what they have ready to go. I think that's probably something else that's not that. And I also don't believe that they're this close to a bill. I really don't believe that. And I don't think there's any motivation to get that done anytime before the election.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to sort through. There's some interesting quotes in there. I think Saban said at one point that his wife, Terry, asked him, like, why are we still doing this? Why are we still doing what? Like, well, all they care about is getting paid, talking about the players. And I know that will lead to some NIL consultant who, uses that as, well, the coaches have always gotten paid. And I'm sure that's been some of the discourse is that argument, that age-old argument of, well, the coaches get paid all this money. They've got freedom of movement. Why don't others? And it's not exactly that black and white, but that is an argument that they've had trouble kind of talking their way around because it is valid, even if it's not exactly that. It is, an argument that's used for the players when you've, for so long and so many decades, not given them their fair share, so to speak, and you've seen these contracts balloon and you see coaches moving around and these huge buyouts and all these different things. I think we've come a pretty good way in the last few years in terms of NIL and transfer portal and all those things. But, yeah, what it's basically turned it into is the thing they said wasn't the point to begin with, is pay for play. It's absolutely turned into pay for play, like everybody knew it was going to turn into. So that's what he's talking about, and that is true, and that is absolutely going on. I don't know how that gets resolved ultimately. I'm with Paul. I don't necessarily feel like, and I'm not predicting anything here, but I don't necessarily feel like there is a life raft being thrown anytime soon because our government is awfully busy at the moment and will be even busier in the coming months. But I will say that this is brighter news than they've had in probably forever. I mean, even the fact that there's even a thought that they could have something come down the pipeline in the next, foreseeable future, next few months, few weeks, whatever it might be, is something to latch onto that I don't think was ever really there to begin with realistically. So that made my eyebrows raise a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, the fact that they could be onto something would be absolutely massive. Now, as for all the rest of it, about the revenue sharing and Title IX, and I mean, there's just a lot to unpack there. Title IX, that's going to have to be a part of the conversation, especially when you talk about the revenue sharing piece. Okay, so are softball players making what? Based on the fact, or swimming or track and field or whatever sport you want to throw out there in comparison to men's basketball, football, the real revenue drivers. I mean, those will all be unpacked, I guess, in the conversations that follow. But I think everybody believes revenue sharing is inevitable. I think everybody believes that there's not a certain way this is done, then sports getting cut is probably inevitable for some. And, let's see if the government's actually going to help out here. I never thought I'd see the day, but today was slightly encouraging as opposed to believing there was no chance in hell.
All right. Do you have the Jim Phillips quote?
Yes, 1 second.
Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference. By the way, the Big 12 tournament, the first-round games, UCF earlier today beat Oklahoma State badly, and then also right now West Virginia in a back-and-forth. That game's at halftime. We'll get to that score and also the play-in. So, I guess, first-round games up in Kansas City. The women had the championship game tonight. If athletes are deemed employees, Jim Phillips believes universities can pay athletes in sports that make revenue, football, basketball, men's basketball. And then to satisfy Title IX would pay an equivalent number of female athletes. The rest could be cut. You can go from 28 to 6 sports in one fiscal year.
Yeah, no, I
said from the beginning, even though I don't know enough the legal parts of this, that what would probably create, oh, wait a minute, we've got to fix this if it messed with Title IX.
Yeah, and so it's technically not messing with Title IX because all you have to do is create equal opportunities at each institution. You don't have to have softball and baseball. You don't have to have either of them. Like you could go to 6, like you said, you could go to 6 sports. Football, men's and women's basketball, pick your other 3 to even it out that would make you the most money, and the rest are all gone because and I'll tell you, we saw this with Title IX. So when Title IX expanded to include sexual assaults on campus, the politicians stood out in front of a Bank of American flags and clapped and had survivors up there and said, "We've done it. We've solved the problem." But all they did was they said, "Your university is in charge of complying with these standards, and you guys get to set how you do that." So basically what bureaucracies do, which most universities are very bureaucratic, even the best ones are still a little bit bureaucratic, they just set up a way to feed through and check the boxes. But then when it came up time for review, you can ask Liberty about this because it just happened to them last week. You're like, well, you really didn't do anything. You just told us you were. And because if it comes into checking boxes and bottom lines, what they'll do is check boxes, save the bottom line, and then swimming and diving is gone, and tennis is gone, and all those other things are gone unless a school decides to fund them on its own, but that's gone for most schools. So yes, if you make them employees, that makes their payroll go up, insurance and all that. So revenue sharing is the better model for them. They just need to get their heads around what that means.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of mixed responses to just the whole showing. I mean, like I said a few minutes ago, I'm more encouraged by the fact that there's at least some idea that they could possibly reach a resolution, but then there's a lot of blowback of like, well, it's not going to happen with this Congress, or it's not going to happen in this time frame. So I don't know. I feel like this is about NIL, but it's not really about NIL. Mm-hmm. Like it's about the bigger picture, and it's about more things like revenue sharing. I know that NIL is like under that umbrella, but I think when you hear they're talking NIL on Congress, they're talking about like specific, like, I don't know, the specifics of NIL as opposed to the greater big picture, which I think is what Jim Phillips is talking about, and which I think the others are talking about as well. When they talk about the elimination of sports, that's not NIL related. That's the bigger picture. So yeah, this had the NIL title, but I mean, there's just a lot of questions. I mean, it's impossible to really know right now what the after effects would be. Like, how does Title IX even apply? Like, I mean, how does it, like, if they become employees, which we don't know if that's the case or not yet, then how would Title IX even apply?
Yeah, and Paul, you said it probably would.
So, like, that part of it, we can get hung up on that, but we don't even know, like, if that's even a thing to worry about for Ohio State if they were to go to an employee model. Would it still be a concern for, Western Kentucky because they're still under more of a collegiate designed umbrella where you're paying players, or maybe there's revenue sharing, but it's still more folded into the school? Like, those are the details that we have no way of knowing right now that will lead to whatever ends up happening with various other, like maybe they become club sports. Like I've seen as a simple solution that volleyball, or maybe not volleyball, but whatever sport becomes more of a club sport.
Lacrosse.
Like lacrosse. And maybe that's the solution to it. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing the whole, we're going to be the NFL minor league thing with 2 conferences, the Big Ten conference and the SEC conference or whatever, and they're playing by a set of rules where everybody's deemed employees, or they have a collective bargaining or whatever the case may be. Well, maybe they don't have to worry about it, but other schools that do it a different way, they don't have the money to just pay everything and never worry about it. They have to do it a different way. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack, but just interesting to kind of see all, I guess a guy like Saban being involved. I think that's a positive. I think that definitely brought more attention to it, and I think having a voice like his in the room is something that could be very constructive for college leaders trying to figure this mess out.
All right, Xavier Wolf in the chat room. This is America. Getting paid for your skills and talent is a cornerstone of what motivates us to be the best in the world. Pay the players. That's from the chat room.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that, I mean, the players are getting paid now. The question is, how are you going to pay them moving forward? The question isn't whether you're paying players or not. they're getting paid through NIL, but now they're trying to wrangle it and make sure that everybody's on an even playing field, like having the same state laws. And so, yeah, that's a given they're getting paid. It's just a matter of, are you going to pay them like full-time employees? And to your point, maybe you believe so, and certainly a lot of people do. And that's the argument that they're having right now is should it be more of you're an employee and you're getting paid like an employee as opposed to you're getting paid through the local Chevy dealer because of your name, image, and likeness. This would make it more professional in that sense.
All right, Smokey Bear, if unionized, can teams then go on strike?
Yeah. It's the fun part about being in a union, Smokey Bear. What are you talking about? You could go on strike.
I think that's his chat name. He was referring to me, although I've always liked that name.
Look. All right. So Craig, Garrett, and I have decided to unionize. We strike today. You know, we've been approved by the National Labor Relations Board, and we strike. Yeah, we can do that. I do think that there's sometimes, like, most unions don't want to go on strike. I think that's what people think when you think of unions. Like, they're just made so that people can go on strike and not get fired. Well, that's actually a good thing, that you can have a way to fight for better and more fair working conditions and wages and go on strike. And you look at the Major League Baseball Players Union and the strikes and things that they've had. Yes, like, it can get annoying, and it can be really annoying when you're watching billionaires and millionaires fight. But yes, they could strike, but unions are set up so that those things are ideally not supposed to happen. Now, there's good unions and bad unions, and just like there's good companies and bad companies and all that. But yes, they could go on strike.
From Stan, if I was an athletic director and a college athlete or a team union formed, I would drop that sport or play scab replacement players.
Yeah, I don't know the legal ins and outs of how all that would work. That's above my pay grade. But yeah, there's a lot of things to sort through when it comes to the conversations being had right now. And so yeah, that would imagine that would be part of it. I mean, we were just talking about the possibility. And granted, like, you know, I do feel like Nick Saban has a voice that needs to be heard and is useful. At the same time, I know that he has an agenda in some ways, and you can't, you can't overlook that. And so I feel like you've got to look at it from all sides, and there's a lot of compelling arguments, but most of them reside on the side of the players. And it's just a matter of what kind of middle ground or what kind of help can you get. And I'm surprised we're even here. And they're still I guess I'm not surprised they're still trying to get that life raft, because really it's their only option outside of just capitulating entirely and just giving up and saying, all right, unions and contracts and full-time employment. And that's what they don't want to do. So we'll see if somehow Saban and the rest of the gang can convince enough politicians that there's a middle ground to be met. But I'm not holding my breath.
UW fan Jim, you can only strike when contract negotiations go bad.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you can't just decide we're in a strike. That's just not how
it's the middle of October. We want those orange Nikes. You're not giving it to us. We strike. Like,
no,
you can't
that's not how it works. No. And so, yeah, you can't do that. Also, let me tell you about scab players. Smokey, I'm old enough to have been alive when it happened, but I don't remember the NFL. Like, it's not in my brain. You remember it. I do remember very well the spring training of 1995 on the heels of the 1994 baseball strike that was still going on, where they had replacement players. And let me just tell you, watching a guy who was, pitching 3 innings and going, Jesus, I'm tired, was not what you want to see. So hiring scab players means you're going to hire people who are not as good as the ones that you have. So a terrible option. And
87 NFL season, I believe it was, when they had the scab replacement players. Washington went out and found a bunch of pretty talented players. Some guys crossed the line for other franchises, and teams. It's been part of sports. I think what we have here, at least they had this discussion. I hope it wasn't a political stunt. It was, in some cases probably was, but they're also, with Nick Saban involved, I know there's some people, now Nick Saban. I think he truly does care. I think he really likes to see if he could somehow help in any way. He said that when he retired the night he did the interview with Reese Davis about college football and its future.
Yeah, and I think the one comment, I mean, it does ring hollow for some people, and rightfully so. The part about, well, why is he not in it anymore? And, my wife asked me or said to me, why do this anymore? And it's all they worry about is money. And, that does, and I know that's just kind of plucked out of the entire conversation, so I'm not trying to make a headline out of it by any means, nor is it the headline from today, but that still does ring a little hollow when you made as much money as Nick Saban made compared to what his players made during their time at Alabama. Now, that's slowly changing, but he's a voice that I think needs to be heard, and I think there's others as well that could have valuable insight and help be productive in trying to get this thing corralled to where everybody's at least on the same page, to where we can hopefully at some point have the issue of having to come up with content to fill all of the legal space that's been filled these last couple of years with realignment or NIL bills or all of these other issues that have cropped up specifically surrounding player payment and unions and those types of things. I mean, it is the big kind of divide in the whole big picture right now. And so, better now than never, and hopefully this leads them down a path to where there can be some things that get resolved.
From S. Michael DeHart, buying y'all a beer for all the hard work making sense out of all this college football insanity. S. Michael, thank you very much.
Yeah, if we can help make sense of it, then definitely appreciate that compliment. Hopefully we are, and it's complicated. I'm not going to lie. Like that's why sometimes I just say, hey, it's not my bag. I don't know. Yeah. I try to be as informed as possible, but there's a lot of legal stuff and a lot of government stuff and a lot of stuff I never imagined we'd talk as much about as we have had to talk about it the last couple of years, but that's okay. That's totally fine.
By the way, how did we do that?
It's a new thing. Jack invented it.
We got you, Smokey.
I've wanted that. We've wanted that forever.
Hey,
to put the super chats or things up on the screen.
Not only that, Jack has discovered something in the pipeline that's going to take a little bit of doing.
Okay.
That's going to make it pop even harder.
Yeah,
it's just
you're gonna like it.
We're going to have to basically take an axe to the desk.
Oh, okay.
So it's a lot that we have to do and need time to do it. And we got stolen 2 days of show away last week.
Yeah.
With no electricity in here.
Yeah, that's
I will say this, Smokey. You say that you hope the thing wasn't a political stunt, and I agree with you. I am concerned because the person who called the NIL hearing, that's all he kind of does. And no, I'm just telling you, like that's his deal.
All of them are that way in many ways.
But he's kind of the king of it, and so I worry that like this is just another way of both sides kicking.
He did.
What did he get done? He got another hearing done.
I know, but they met, and we've talked about it for 25 minutes. But
he got another hearing done.
I'm hoping it wasn't a political stunt. I think everything they do in Washington basically is a political stunt.
Yeah. So.
All right, we have an update. West Virginia is up 9 right now in the Big 12 first-round games over Cincinnati. Earlier today, it was UCF blowing out Oklahoma State 77-62, and you wonder if it's Mike Boynton's last game as head coach in Stillwater. And tonight, Iowa State, Texas for the women's championship. Texas highly favored and number 5 in the country. They are on the, again, Oklahoma won the regular season title, but not in the championship game. So Texas tonight against Iowa State. Here's news for the men's tournament coming up in Kansas City. This was from yesterday evening. Bill Self saying that both Hunter Dickinson, no surgery needed, stresses he thinks Dickinson would be ready to go for the NCAAs, not hindered by the shoulder, and that Kevin McCullough will be ready also. So you would think it looks like pretty obvious that they're both going to sit out what game, 1, 2, 3, or 4 games in Kansas City and get themselves healthy for next week.
Here's your moment in the sun, Kansas bench. You're going to get a lot of minutes you haven't gotten this year before. Parker Brown, brother of Christian Brown, is going to play a lot. I would say Elmarco Jackson's probably going to play a lot. And you'll see what they can do. Elmarco Jackson had a nice little second half against Baylor, so maybe he might break out the most. But, yeah, they're going to be a very different team when they play West Virginia or Cincinnati tomorrow, and right now it's trending towards West Virginia, but it's still early in the second half.
They're up by 10 with 15 plus to go in that game. I'll never forget the year that Baylor won the national title. Remember, that was the COVID year, and they missed some games, and then they had to play extra games to make up. and then they got to the tournament, lost on, I think, a Friday to Oklahoma State. Everybody was going to go to Indianapolis as one. They stayed back in Kansas City rather than coming back to Waco, worked out an extra couple of days, and it gave them a chance to kind of get some things fixed before the tournament started in Indianapolis, in which they ran the table to win the national title. I almost used this yesterday with Porter Moses, a national reporter. Moser. He was up for the Oklahoma job. This is from Dick Weiss. We've had him on the show. He's a very well-respected columnist. But Porter Moser responding, heard all the rumors this afternoon and want to say emphatically, there is zero truth. I love Oklahoma, the Sooner Nation.
What job was he up for?
DePaul.
DePaul.
Yeah.
Oh.
DePaul job.
Yeah. I'm not like, no, DePaul's got a nice basketball history.
It was being reported that he was going to take the job at DePaul, and there he was a little bit later on.
He's about to have an SEC job. So, and an SEC conference that's really good this year, but there's no reason that Porter Moser can't go into the SEC and win next year. So.
I mean, it's an easier time than he's having right now.
Yeah.
It's an easier road. I think there's some great teams over there, Tennessee and others that are really good. But I think top to bottom, there's a pathway that clears a little bit in terms of just maybe the overall schedule. Still will be tough, and I think now you start to at least watch him moving forward as far as the amount of games he wins and how that translates over to the SEC, sort of what the expectations are that Oklahoma has. But, yeah, I think he stamped that out pretty well, and so I don't know how far down the tracks that even really got. All due respect to Dick Weiss, I mean, the reports there kind of indicate he was pretty close, but I don't know. His response seems to indicate differently. So, that's great news for Oklahoma that you don't have to worry about going and getting another basketball coach, and just hopefully that he continues to build this thing up and can make a smooth transition in the Southeastern Conference next year.
DePaul has been pretty much out of the pocket. Just haven't been a part of the national scene. I remember the years back, of course, in the 80s with Ray Meyer, Mark Aguirre, and others, but they have really struggled now. I think I saw a note in the chat room that they haven't been in the tournament now in a couple of decades, so that's very interesting to hear that. All right, when we come back, we're going to have Pete Nakos from On3, and he'll give us his thoughts about what was going on today in D.C. and maybe options that he thinks or has heard are there, if any. Right now, this is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. My dentist is Dr. Steve Childress. Appreciate him very much. He took over my dental work, which was haphazard, and has fixed a lot of it. But because of what I didn't do for probably 15 years or so, I still have some work to do. Need to think about a completely done front bridge at some point, and I'll probably do that. But there's always something else as well. But I've got a lot of things that were a problem fixed. Some teeth pulled. Some, of course, are crowns that are in. The bridge, a retainer that allows me to keep being able to not worry about my front bridge that got loose about, 6 months ago. And then, he's even met me early in the morning, late at night to help me with what was a bad tooth, and fixed it, and then got me through the weekend, came back first thing Monday morning and fixed it with a root canal and more. Dr. Steve Childress and his staff, Robinson, Texas, Stonewood Dental.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Pete Nakos on 3 Sports, on3nil.com. Also on Twitter, with us on 365 Sports. Pete, thanks for your time with Paul Craig, David Smoak. So what did you make of today's hearing that was held on Capitol Hill?
You know, it was an interesting day on Capitol Hill. And the reason I say that is, right, you hear that Ted Cruz puts a 50-50 chance of getting a bill done. That appears high to me, the high chance. And at the same time, right, social media is fired by comments made by Nick Saban and what was really the first platform he had to really talk about his decision to retire and his thoughts on NIL and revenue sharing and employment post-retirement. Very interesting day on Capitol Hill, especially for a situation where it was a roundtable, not even a legislative hearing.
So, Pete, this being a roundtable and not a legislative hearing, and I know that they, Senator Sloan said that they were very close to a deal. How much are we to believe that, or what does this close mean in Congress math?
I had a chance to be on with Paul Feinbaum earlier, and Paul asked me that, and I kind of stuttered a little and didn't do a best job of explaining it. I'm not going to be a political pundit here, but what I will say is I do think you need to really take a hard look at who's saying it, and obviously Ted Cruz has always been kind of involved in college sports and NIL, and he put on this roundtable today, so he's definitely interested. But he was honest and did say, "Hey, we probably have 2 months, right? A presidential election's coming. So does it get done? I don't want to say it's dead in the water, but at the same time, I wouldn't put the cart in front of the horse."
Pete, when it comes to NIL specifically, I know this is a roundtable about that, but it seemed like they were talking more about the bigger picture, though. Like the unionization and the employment status and things like that are kind of what popped out in the headlines. But state laws as well, needing to all be on one page. From a direct NIL standpoint and that issue that college sports faces, what stood out to you perhaps most from today?
I think I just said, in the sense of sorry. but when I mean that, I mean like I think it's notable that you have Senator Jerry Moran in there speaking openly about how he thinks that there's all this commonality. And you're right, though. They did speak a lot about the future of college sports, and it's really interesting too, right? You have Nick Saban up there talking about how he backs revenue sharing, but at the same time, wouldn't really back an employment model. And I mean, making sure athletes aren't employees, make sure the NCAA still has power over athletes, right? So it's definitely very interesting time in college sports.
Pete, you mentioned it is an election year and all this. What do you, if you gave the coaches a chance, like Nick Saban, to write the bill about revenue sharing, would they be maybe happy to do that, and would they have better ideas on it that maybe others do?
That's a great question. I don't know if they would have a better take on it, but I would definitely be really interested in seeing what that looks like and how they would kind of envision the revenue being split up and how it would be done, right? Talking about revenue sharing, right, that's a big step. I think the next step is to really try to dive into like what it looks like, right? Because obviously the collectives want the cash to go through them. The coaches just want it to go through the institutions. And the NCAA wants to make sure it continues to have power, not split away into a new separate governing body that Democrats on the Hill support.
You think we'll be talking about this a year from now and nothing's changed?
I think in a year from now, we'll seriously be talking about revenue sharing starting. And I think that that is very close. I don't think we're going to have any congressional legislation done by then. So it's interesting. And the other thing too, that people lose sight of, I feel like sometimes, is obviously the NCAA continues to lose in court, right? That's happening with the NLRB and obviously with the NIL and transfer portal preliminary injunctions. And they got another big one coming up with the House versus NCAA case. And college sports could be looking at $4 billion of damages off of that. So I don't think the NCAA really has the option to wait around until next year. But at the same time, you guys heard the same things I did today. I'm not overly encouraged that Congress is going to get this done.
Pete, when the Title IX concerns come up, how legitimate are those? And especially when it comes to what Jim Phillips said about if it's an employment model, then schools are just going to do the bare minimum to comply with Title IX and pay the money to the sports that make the money.
Yeah, I think that Title IX is being used as a crutch. And the reason why I say that is because not enough people have an understanding of what Title IX looks like in an employment model. I mean, you talk to the labor experts, and a lot of them, it's just their best guess. So when you hear about these folks kind of talking about Title IX and how it would be impacted with employment, nobody truly knows. And I'm not saying we're going to wait to find out until employment comes. But nobody is an expert right now in what that impact would look like.
Do you feel like, and again, legally, I don't know, I may be talking completely out of, don't really know exactly how to tie it all together, but with NIL, revenue sharing, I've always said, Pete, that the one way that somebody will put their hand up and go, okay, wait a minute, we can't do this, is if all of a sudden the women's sports started to be affected. Do you agree with that they'll figure out a way that would be the one where, we cannot let that happen?
Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that. I just think that you go back to it, right? And it's obviously today's roundtable was encouraging. It was hard to not walk out of there and think okay, there actually seems to be some momentum. But then, at least for me, you hear about it, you think about it, and then you kind of sit back and you're like, oh, wow, there's a presidential election coming. Ted Cruz was really honest that there's only a 2-month window. As important as this is to so many people, I don't know if it's unifying enough to force legislation through.
Pete, go ahead, Paul.
No, Pete, when was the last time that you read about football? Did something just about, the spread offense?
I feel the same way right now. It's been a minute. It's man, I do the transfer portal too, and by the end of the transfer portal, I'm kind of okay, let's go, like, do something else. But all of a sudden, the transfer portal sounds really attractive today. And I mean, I love my job and I love what I do, but man, it's a lot to try to wrap your head around. And at the same time, you obviously have to come at it with some analysis and do you take Ted Cruz at face value? Do you not? I don't really know if I'm in a position to become a political pundit, but at the same time, people do make a fair point where it's like, okay, do you trust Ted Cruz or not?
Pete, Nick Saban said what he had to say today, and I want to get to that in a moment. But basically, when he made the comment about his wife talking to him about how all players talk about now is money, and there was like that kind of part of the conversation. Immediately, there was backlash from people who were like, "Dude, you made hundreds of millions of dollars," and yada yada yada. So there's that part of it that coaches just can't really argue against, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to. But as a figurehead, as a spokesperson for college coaches and the game of college football, how do you think that he did, and do you see more of this in his future that could be effective, maybe not with this particular story, but perhaps others moving forward?
Yeah, Nick Saban isn't going anywhere. I thought he was really interesting today. It's hard to not see like the two sides of it, right? Like, yes, Nick Saban has really profited from college football. And it is really ironic that he said some of the things he said. I mean, at the same time, someone else made a good point. I thought, like, Nick Saban didn't just start at Alabama. He worked his way up to get to where he was, just like any other person in the world. So, like, there's that. He's taking this role at ESPN. Nick Saban is not going to leave the spotlight. I also don't know, like, right, we heard him talk today about, like, Miss Terry telling him, like, how athletes only care about money anymore. Like, I think Nick Saban's happy to be involved in these conversations, but, like, I don't know if he gets excited about them. You know what I mean? Like, to me, Nick Saban strikes me as the kind of guy who really just, like, is more than happy to go on ESPN 12 times in the fall and just, like, chop up about, like, who he thinks the best quarterback in the SEC is. Like, this topic is not one that college football coaches get overly excited about.
Pete, good luck with that transfer portal. You can't wait for it to open up and what you do.
He's got 6 beautiful weeks before it does.
Yeah.
Where he can
see
the sun.
Is it legal tampering period for
I guess
transfer portal
Yeah.
like in the NFL?
Pete, do something great. Go pick roses or, skydive.
Yeah.
Live your life before it opens again.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Pete Nakos, on3.com, On3NIL on Twitter, On3 Sports as well on Twitter with us on 365 Sports. West Virginia up now just 9 minutes, 24 seconds left on Cincinnati, who's a tough out. And so one of those two teams advancing to play at some point tomorrow.
That'd be an awful loss for West Virginia, for Cincinnati. I mean, just kind of feel like that's one that they could pick off here. I mean, I know they're not a great team by any means, but they're not West Virginia. I mean, who's 13 games under 500. So, yeah, I feel like this is a game where you thought maybe Cincinnati could come in here and grab a win and then move on and face Kansas. But, yeah, Mountaineers are making it tough and not going out quiet by any means and got a nice little lead right now.
The West Virginia has a really good history in Kansas City of being in longer than everybody thinks that they will, even when they're good. Like, even when they've had some really good teams, like there have been some times where you're like, well, they're not going to beat this team. And they're like, oh, the hell we won't. They do it. I don't know. I guess it's just that tournament, the idea of that it's
the idea that this is the end of their season.
This is the end of their season.
They're not playing any more games after they get beat the next time.
They could play in the NIT or whatever that's called. But you're right.
Well, 9 and 22, I don't even think that's even
still.
Happen.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
They're not.
So
they're not a bubble. They're not a bubble team.
We'll keep you up. They would have to win it. So Cincinnati down by 5 and at the free throw line. So yesterday, let's do this when we come back, Garrett. Yesterday, I got contacted about the discussion we had in the segment with Ross Dellinger, and I'm going to ask some of these questions. Let's digest them and talk about them. Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach at 4, former Houston and Texas, and NFL assistant coach Tom Herman, who's now at Florida Atlantic today at around 4:25. Craig's off the radar. John McClain, Paul's top 5. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. It was about a year ago when I learned about them. I had not heard about them. And now here they are, changing the way the beef business is being promoted and also run. They have taken, they distribute their meat, their beef, what they have, which is farm-raised aged Wagyu beef. But they've also now started what is online auctions, and they're going to have another one in April. And some of you have bought their product, and some of you were in the auction, maybe didn't pay attention. Next thing you know, a great deal came and went, and you forgot to put down another bid. They're going to do that again in April. More information on that, and you'll hear that throughout the time on this show. From their pasture to your plate, the Duvall family has created an unbelievable amount of energy. Located just outside of Tyler in White House, Texas, yes, the home of Patrick Mahomes. What they have is farm-raised Wagyu beef. And it's not just steak, it's beef. It's also sausage. And if you want, they'll do the hamburger patty separately. If you want, they'll have what you need, even tri-tip and brisket. It is delicious. The marbling that you hear or see or have heard about when it comes to Wagyu beef, the marbling is unbelievable. The steak is delicious, and it's right there in White House, Texas. But you can order online from their farm-raised Wagyu beef and their ranch to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com with me, David Smoak. And tell you what, you guys keep rolling along. You do have yet another date, correct, for an online and live auction?
Yes, our next online and live auction will be Thursday, April 25th.
We've discussed how this has been unique and how people have reacted to it. Has that momentum continued as you've done more?
Yes, it's kind of half and half. We'll have a good amount of people there that are from the area, and then we have probably 40% that we ship out. And everybody that I've delivered locally to has talked about how much fun they had, and they want to know when the next one's going to be. We've gotten great feedback from the people that we've shipped to. They're all just so excited about this event, and they can't wait for the next one to happen.
Premium grade East Texas beef. Customers don't have to go out and buy their beef. TexasBeefHouse.com, from their family and their ranch to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
So yesterday, Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, joined us on many things when it comes to the college football playoff, from, yes, revenue sharing, or the way it's broken down, and also the format itself, which is set for the next year or two, but not in 2026, when it might go even higher. 12 teams starting this fall. So College Football Plus sent me a couple of questions. Let you guys, if you want to, kind of help digest some of this. And I don't know if I have this answer. Does Notre Dame have the same voting authority of the rest of the conferences as far as singularly? And if so, does that affect any sort of agreement? I doubt Notre Dame would agree to anything that would put them or cause them to lose any kind of independence.
Yes, they do. Jack Swarbrick's was one of the authors of this. Now he's retiring at this year, and the new AD is going to take over, but I assume he's just going to step right into those roles. Yeah, Jack Swarbrick's had the same power as every conference commissioner this entire time. And he has really, compared to all of them, he has the easiest job. He only has to worry about one spot, as where they have to worry about many. He still has the same thing. And Notre Dame is going to have carve-outs in all this. And the only thing that they've given up is the fact that they will, probably – unless there's some kind of other model that comes out. But in the current model, and if it's even kind of expansion of that, because they're not in a conference, they won't ever get a first-round bye. But that means that they'll get to have another game in Notre Dame if they're the top 12. So I think it's worked out for them in that regard.
Yeah, there's still the wishful thinking or the belief that they're going to eventually be forced to join a conference. I don't feel like they're at that point yet. Especially with the new TV deal that's bringing in money. The part about the playoff, though, is interesting, and their place in that, especially when it comes to the payout. Like, what does that figure actually look like when all is said and done? Their smaller percentage.
No, that's what
that's the part that I am kind of curious about. Are you making so much money that's offset and it's not that big of a deal? But I would like to hear more about that. They just. At least from our conversations, we focused in on the fact that the SEC and the Big Ten are basically trying to have every advantage known to man and then double those advantages and just leave it to where there's just no chance for anybody to even approach them ever again based on nothing more than the last 10 years of national championships and their TV contracts and ratings and stuff. And I say nothing more. Those matter. But, I think it's silly you're trying to say, well, the last 10 years are going to determine what you get paid instead of actually winning games. Like, how? That's a whole nother tangent we can get to, but how did they not vote through? And we got to ask Mac Rhodes about this. But why did they not further push? Bids are one thing, but winning guarantees you more money, not being a part of a league.
Yeah.
Why is that not an automatic in this whole thing? Because the SEC and the Big Ten don't want that. They want it based on, the last 10 years averaged out. But the whole payout system is based on previous results and TV ratings and the size of schools and their influence and things. But they won't do it to where, like, hey, Kansas State doesn't have advantage, but if they win 3 games, they're going to get a big, heavy slice. Instead, it's negotiated beforehand.
Yeah, they'll get units, but it's nothing compared to the overall
So
slice.
the winning's not what's most important as far as getting the actual money that could catch you up eventually. So it's almost like you can't do anything to ever close the gap. Not even winning really closes the gap.
No, that's just 2, 3, 4, 5 million a game.
But why is it not merit-based?
Here's what someone says, this is who they are. Had they done this 15 years ago,
right?
Had they done this in the mid to late 90s, if they even done this back in the early to mid 2000s, would they have had this kind of chasm, this kind of separation among any of the conferences?
Well, no, because the Pac-12 would still be alive, most likely, and things would be a lot different than they are now.
The SEC was just starting to win. The Big 12 would have been set up pretty because they had Texas and Oklahoma coming off national titles. If it would have been in 2005-06.
And quite honestly, the Big Ten back then was the most powerful conference because they had Jim Delaney who could just kind of unilaterally do things. And I mean, Mike Slive was in the SEC, but Mike Slive was still kind of laying in wait and dealing with the SEC and
They were building.
They were building, but it wasn't like here's the other thing. You never used to hear about conference commissioners at all, except for every 5 years when somebody would be like, this postseason sucks. What do we need a playoff? And then Jim Delaney's like, well, there's no model for a playoff that would ever work in college football. Football is different. You're like, what about basketball? He's like, basketball, the ball is round. And in football, the ball is oblong. And obviously that negates a playoff entirely. So let's stop doing this.
We'll have Mac, I believe it's next Tuesday.
But yeah, the merit-based thing has to get there. And again, had they done it back then like it at least would have been built into the fabric of let's do better, let's make more money.
It would have been more equally distributed, or at least the percentages would have been different. But again, it wasn't done.
And there was no conference pride back then. Nobody was walking around with a T-shirt that had the conference on it.
Thing is, nobody really still does except for one place. And then everybody else tries to go like, well, let's do that with our... No, let's not do that. That's weird. And it's suitable for them because that's just the lifestyle and that's part of the fabric at this point. But no, that doesn't mean that everybody else needs to go like, go ACC or... And I know with the Big 12 it's different because they've had to live the life of, and I understand the sort of rallying around one another, but not to the extent of K-State's like rooting for Kansas to win a national title. You know what I mean? And then claiming part of that national title in some ways. The Big 12, I get though, because they were hardened by fire and by near death on multiple occasions. So there is that element that combines them, but not in the sort of like almost patriotic type of a way that you see it in the Southeastern Conference. And so going back to the question, with Notre Dame, I'm really interested to hear kind of, they obviously have voting authority, but to hear kind of what the payout structure looks like from their standpoint, and does that have any effect? I don't see it having any effect right now. I know there's other questions, and we don't have time for those, but I don't see anything right now unless they were just to get so boxed out monetarily that it's like $100 million over 3 years that you're missing out on. And even then, I'm still not convinced that Notre Dame joins the conference. So that's where I sit at least.
I think that'll be their last breath. Would be okay, we've got to give in to this. The pride factor, but kind of a Rose Bowl, and I'm not trying to use this as a negative, but kind of like the Rose Bowl has stuck their heels in the ground. I think Notre Dame would do that up until we got to do something about it.
But also, like, they're going to get a $60 million TV deal or so. They're going to get whatever they get from the playoff, and they only have themselves. They don't have to share that.
They don't have to share.
They don't have to share anything. So, again, you might.
Do they get any of the ACC money for the TV?
Basketball? Yeah.
No, I'm talking in football.
Not football. No, not football.
So. Okay,
but no, they maybe get the games like the road games that they're on. They get a little bit of that, but like whatever that works out to. But it's not what they. But like they've got revenue streams. Like they've got them and. They've got these revenue streams, and the rent that they're paying, not to have anybody tell them what to do, is
it might be priceless.
Is being independent.
When we come back, Scott Drew, Baylor men's basketball coach, also around the corner today. We'll hear from Craig Smoak and Off the Radar, Paul's Top 5, and Tom Herman, Florida Atlantic football coach. This is 365 Sports. Built in 1943, opened their doors in 1943 in Pioneer Steel and Pipe with their new location. It's just now over a year old. Moved in December of 2022. Bigger, better, faster, and stronger. And they were always really good. A home, locally owned business that specialized in having what you need to build things, metal buildings or what you need for real estate and commercial property. And pipe, steel, and metal. Now they have more of it. Now their distribution and their lanes of where you go and pick up the product, even better because more of it and the way the efficiency is set up, which was already really good. 1943, they opened their doors. Local companies have been squashed in certain places around the country because of the bigger stores that can have more product and so sell it for less. And Pioneer Steel and Pipe never wavered, and customers continue to come back to them generation after generation. And now they have what they need even more of, the tradition since 1943, pioneerboys.com.
It's Dodge Power Shot Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Experience the adrenaline-pumping performance and cutting-edge technology of Dodge. From the sleek and stylish 2023 Charger to the performance and muscle of a Challenger to the bold and rugged Durango. During Dodge Power Shot Days, we're offering amazing deals and special incentives that will make driving a new Dodge even more exhilarating. Don't miss out on these exclusive savings. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco today and unleash the power of Dodge.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. you feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Baylor men's basketball coach, national championship coach Scott Drew joins us on 365 Sports. Big 12 tournament, of course, has begun. Hell of a game going on right now between Cincinnati and West Virginia. In the second game, UCF won the first against Oklahoma State. Scott, thanks for your time. What are you most proud of with what you and the program have accomplished since where you were when you started, where it was, to where you are now?
That's a tough question. Someone said we have 54 pro players, which is outstanding. We've set since 2008, us and Kansas, the only 2 schools to win 18 or more a year, and that's great consistency. Recently, most proud of 5 straight years with 11 plus wins, the only one in the Big 12 to do that, and I heard the other day there's only been 4 schools that have won a game in the NCAA tournament the last 4 years, and we're one of those, one of 4 schools to be a top 3 seed in the last 4 years. So I know a lot of times people, we just look at the final result, and that is like, is it a national championship? Is it a Final Four? But in today's day and age, I mean, when you say that, only 4 teams have actually won a game in the last 4 years in the NCAA tournament. Just shows you how hard it is with the parity to do that year in and year out. So the consistency is what I'm most proud of with our program. And a lot of times you might have a great year followed up by a terrible year and then an average year, and then you build. But we've had guys each and every year come in, and I mean, this year only 1 returning starter in the Big 12. And, once again, they find a way to put ourselves in position to get a double bye.
Well, you mentioned the double bye there, Scott, and it is, 14. It's going to be 16 next year. You guys it doesn't really change your strategy because it's now the same. You start on Thursday, and you hope you're playing again through Saturday at the tournament. But do you think it changes how the teams that will play today and tomorrow have to approach this, seeing as, if you're Cincinnati or West Virginia who's playing right now, you have to get ready to play 4 or 5 days in a row?
Well, I think it would be hard to be a team that presses 40 minutes and win 5 games in 5 days. But the one good thing about postseason is, and with the timeouts, they're so long. Guys are in such good shape. Trainers and strength coaches do such a good job. I mean, as long as you're not really pressing or doing something that's extraordinary as far as exerting energy, you're gonna do with what got you to the dance, and go with dance with who got you there. And so, I mean, teams are going to play how they play. They're not going to try to change too much or mix it up too much, I would think.
How much did Langston Love getting minutes in Lubbock, despite the game being a loss, how much does that help this week?
Well, it should help a lot from the standpoint. A lot of times people look and someone comes back and they just look at how they did, and it's a team sport. And there's 4 other guys on the court. There's guys on the bench. So you get used to a certain routine, rotation, and then that changes. And you just always got to get used to something new. And you always want to go into the NCAA tournament with your best foot forward. Everybody knows their roles, knows what to expect. And then you're always going to have maybe foul trouble or illnesses or whatnot, but you like to have a general idea. And that's why getting players back and having a chance to get used to playing with him is so critical, because Langston did a great job and was a bright spot in Tech. But it's not like you insert somebody and all of a sudden that they're back to being what they were and the team's back to being what they were before because it's a chemistry game. It's you're used to playing with people and you're feeding off of their movements and what they do. And you have a role. It's a mental game. This is when I'm playing, how much I'm playing. I mean, all that comes into account. So getting him back was huge.
Scott, this is a new era of the Big 12 with the expanded teams. How much more scouting do you have to do in the short amount of time in the tournament?
Well, I tell you, it's harder from the standpoint when you had 9 teams. You played everybody twice, so you knew everything about everybody. Now, some teams you only played once, and it might have been early in the year. They might be a completely different team now because of somebody's injury or style of play. They start out a year and they're doing one thing. They mid-year to the end of the year change it. So there is a little more scouting involved and a little more unfamiliarity.
How much or which of the 2 freshmen, and I know Miro Little's a part of this too, but with Eves Missy and Jacoby Walter, how much have they grown up in this, I guess, this first year and depending on their future at Baylor University?
Well, I think both of them are sophomores now. They played enough minutes, been in enough situations, had enough experiences. They played a ton of minutes and done a lot for freshmen, especially in nowadays standards. I mean, if you look, 2 other freshmen to start in a Power 5 conference and play this much. I mean, there might be only 1 or 2 other schools or 3 schools tops that has had that. So they deserve a lot of credit. One, physically, to be able to play every game and go through the rigors and the toughness of the Big 12 and facing 22, 23, 24-year-olds. And then also the mental side of it. And both of them kind of had different spectrums, meaning Jacoby came in a little more touted and on the draft boards, and then he starts with 28 points. And, I mean, the bar was set so high for him, and that's really hard to do all season. I mean, that's you score 20 and it's a bad game, you know? So he's done a phenomenal job, and he's not a stat guy. He's a team guy. He's whatever it takes for the team to win. That's what he's about. And then Eve is somebody that early on he was good, but he didn't have as big a workload as Jacoby. And as the year went on, more and more was put on his plate, and he's done a great job responding to all the physicality because. Inside, I mean, that's another level. It's very similar to football. I mean, skill positions, you see some freshmen playing, but you don't see a lot of linemen play their first year because of the physicality inside.
Eve had that great game against Kansas that followed up, a week earlier, the last home game he played against Houston. For most of the game, he just was not a factor offensively at all, and he was struggling. What does it say about a kid that's so young that in a week he can go from having his probably worst game of the season to maybe even his best?
It speaks to his mental toughness and his desire to play well and improve and help the team. And at the same time, hopefully at this time of year, as a coaching staff, you go through all of this so that you can be the best and the most consistent at this time of year. So you have a bad game here and you go home.
Scott, you have the new arena, the Foster Pavilion. You've waited for this forever. It's given you, although a couple of the losses, and they were overtime games, you were here when nobody else really wanted to be here. You've built this program up. You mentioned all the consistent stats, et cetera, trends. Can you imagine yourself not coaching at Baylor University?
Hopefully, one thing's for certain, and that is we win a bunch of national championships and bring a lot of trophies back here to Baylor, and I'd love to be a part of that. I know this year, and we won the national championship, and the next year we started out 15-0, and then we had the injury to LJ and John at the beginning of the year to Langston, and I mean I thought that year we could have won it again, and then the year after, I mean we were number 9 seed overall. So we've had opportunities, and we've had talented players that have done a great job in putting the team first, and as long as we keep doing that, and our Mac Rhodes and President Livingstone have always made sure that they've kept us at a level where we can compete for national championships. And as you know, as a coach, that's what you want, because you're not in it to lose. And so many great memories. We had Wendy Paul Mills' wife was down here today with her daughter, a junior, and she was looking at Baylor, and we were showing her around. She was looking at Paul Mills' old office and reminiscing and telling stories. So we were recruiting her today. So we're always recruiting. You know that.
Absolutely. Last thing, we've heard coaches discuss what they have experienced. Bill Self gushed over the Foster Pavilion, saying it was dozens and dozens and dozens times better than where Baylor used to play. Kelvin Sampson has made very positive comments, and other coaches have as well. I know you don't have to say much about it, but you've experienced it every time. Has it been better than you thought it would be, even though there are still so many amenities and so much construction that needs to be finished?
Yeah, I can tell you that the noise level is exactly what I had hoped and envisioned, and I know with moving forward, again, we were really limited this year. You treated it like an NBA arena where you showed up, you shot around, you played a game, you practiced the day before, but you never spent any other time in there. So, I mean, before the first couple conference games, those teams spent as much time as we did in there. So it was your home, but it wasn't really your home, you know? And once we get in this summer, guys get a chance to get all the shots in and the time in, and really get a feel for it. And it becomes an even better home court advantage. And then with game management, I know they do a phenomenal job, but they got a lot of ideas once it's finished to continue to improve and make it even a tougher venue. And you've traveled some in the Big 12, and that's what makes the Big 12 the best conference, not just the quality of coaches and players, but the fan support in the arenas. So hard to win on the road. I mean, we just played at Tech, and Ken Palm Analytics had it as the number 1 home court advantage. And I mean, there's 363 schools. So, I mean, like, that's a lot of schools to be number 1. So it just shows you how hard it is to win on the road against what we face. And the Foster gives you that opportunity.
I'll never forget that I was on a trip when you guys made to Ames, Iowa. It was freezing. They won the game. And the experience of that crowd was something that I always will remember, because you wanted me to kind of, you asked me, you want to go on a road trip and cover the team, and I did. And it was electric. And you're right, there's some great atmospheres, not just in Lawrence, but Ames and elsewhere, BYU and others, including Lubbock, and now the Foster Pavilion. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it very much. Good luck in Kansas City, Scott. We'll see you there.
Hey, thank you guys for all that you do.
Scott Drew, national championship coach at Baylor, with us on 365 Sports. They will wait for games to finish up. By the way, Cincinnati came back, wrapped up the win against West Virginia, 90-85 in a high-scoring game, their 19th win of the year, and now they move into tomorrow's bracket. As far as continuing on, Baylor waits and plays Thursday at night, the 8:30 game, with whoever eventually survives tomorrow.
Yeah, if it's Kansas for a third time, or if it's Cincinnati again, we'll see. I don't think Bill Self wants that to happen, but he certainly is setting up a scenario where Kansas is as close to taking a knee on this thing as they ever could be with not having their two best players in the lineup.
Cincinnati, the record is 19-11 or 12, whatever. I watched them in person at the Foster. They're really pretty good. They're physical. They're big. And Skillern is a dynamic player, and today he wasn't even their top two scorers. I kind of like how they play the game. And I saw them against, Baylor back in January in the first game I saw and witnessed at the Foster Pavilion.
Yeah, first Big 12 tournament win for Cincinnati's program.
UCF too earlier, yeah.
Yeah, and UCF as well. So congrats to both those programs on getting that first one out of the way. But, yeah, Cincy looks pretty fired up, and they've got room to make some noise and probably more motivation than others in this tournament because of what they can gain from going and getting some wins. So, yeah, that was a nice little comeback. It wasn't like they were facing an insurmountable lead, but West Virginia did appear to have a little bit of momentum there, and they flipped it on them pretty quick. So, good win for the Bearcats. And now for West Virginia, figure some things out with that basketball program.
Yeah.
Now it's done. So, time for our buddy, the AD's name, forgetting.
Ren Baker.
Ren Baker. Gosh, Ren Baker to go figure out how they want to move forward there.
So tomorrow, BYU will play UCF, TCU, Oklahoma, Texas against K-State, and Kansas will now meet Cincinnati in the men's tournament. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, and the people that hundreds, make that thousands of people have counted on over the past 20-plus years, as Richard Carr has been the people you can count on, and right now are celebrating, in fact, their 25th anniversary here in Central Texas, and they're celebrating that with great offers and hopefully some big business as well. But they've got the Buick SUVs that are worth checking out right now. Amazing value with the Buick SUVs. You can drive one today and feel the quiet luxury and also see the versatile space that they have within the new Buicks, delivering an uncommon luxury at a common price. Go over to Richard Carr Motors right now and experience a Buick test drive today. And when you do, you can save thousands on a new Buick Envision. Qualified buyers can also get 0.9% financing. And as always, over at Richard Carr, military and first responders can also save an additional $500. You can, when you make your way over there, give them a phone call, get even more details on that. But right now, Buick SUVs on the lot. Great luxury, great space, and a great offer right now over at Richard Carr. Plus, it is the month of March, so if you purchase a car or truck, you can get a 65-inch 4K TV with the Richard Carr 25th anniversary event ongoing. During the anniversary savings event, get the 65-inch 4K TV with a car or truck purchase, but big savings all over the place on 90 highly inspected used cars and trucks in addition to their new vehicles. 100% credit approval is always their goal, and they say yes when others say no. So for 25 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
365 Sports on this Tuesday afternoon. Around the corner, Florida Atlantic football coach Tom Herman will join us. And earlier today, if you missed it, with Pete Nakos from On3.com on the round table, what'd you call it? A platform, Paul?
It was the NIL round table. That's
okay,
what they
up in
they
Washington,
called it. It
DC.
wasn't a hearing. It was a round table, which I don't know. How that. Maybe that just means how they cater the thing. But it's a round table. We're just going to have finger foods. But if it's a hearing,
right,
there's full meals and desserts,
full hamburgers and
yeah.
Mickey D's like the Baylor women's team guy when they visited the White House a few years ago. I guess maybe that's part of the details of it, the distinction there. Yeah, I don't know, but they talked NIL. It still felt like it was more big picture talk though than NIL, and I get that NIL is part of the fabric of the bigger picture, but to me, that's not the big threat to them right now. It's not like, all states need to be on the same footing. I do believe that. I think that you immediately saw like the race to see who could gain the advantage first with these various states passing laws the way they just so fast and feverishly did a couple of years back, and to have that finally on some equal footing would make some sense. But beyond that, I feel like today was much more just big picture talk, and the big picture and parts of that big picture that are not NIL are the more important questions, like full-time employment or the distinction of being considered full-time employees and what benefits that comes with, and so on and so forth. That's a lot bigger of a concern, the threat to other sports than NIL. I think NIL now is just the buzzword, and that's just kind of what's used to grab attention. That is still very much a thing, but I feel like that's not the number one threat to college athletics at the moment. So, chop away at it, but definitely take some bigger swings at the bigger subjects, and that's what the pressing concern needs to be.
On the chat room, RX saying, my theory is Disney hoped to have the college football deal to present shareholders, stakeholders, and investors this week. No, you're right. When we discussed it yesterday with Ross Dellinger, they were hoping to have something in their hands to start to really get their hands on the revenue of what happens in the future with the college football playoff, and then maybe figure out what they're going to do with who gets how many from each conference, et cetera. Tom Herman, head football coach at Florida Atlantic, joins us on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Coach, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. What and how do you go about managing what is going on with so many moving parts in college football these days? And is it at times almost not overwhelming, but just so many things have converged at once?
I appreciate you guys having me. And thank you. But it has been, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's maybe not the volume or exactly what is happening. Maybe it's the fact that all of these are happening at the same time, and they're all affecting each other, and so it's just a really, really unique and interesting time to be around college athletics. It's certainly not what I signed up for 25 years ago when I started in this, for sure.
Coach, when you're at a school like Florida Atlantic that you are trying to help, grow their presence and grow the map and let people know, what's now about things, and you see these other leagues making decisions, how much more challenges does that make your sales pitch, knowing that you've got an interesting situation that's going on down there on the east coast of Florida, but there's so many other noisy levels of different issues going on?
Yeah, I think it's actually good for us and the conference that we're in. I think obviously going into the American Conference at the time that we did proved to be a really smart move. And that being said, because I think something like 8 out of the last 10 or 9 out of the last 10 highest ranked Group of 5 champion was the American Conference champion. And what does that mean? Well, great, you did it, or we did it when we were at Houston, and Luke's great teams at Cincinnati and Matt's teams at Temple and all those teams that went to New Year's Six games. So what does that mean here? Well, that means if you win the American Conference, you're going to the playoffs. And, well, you say, well, in the Big Ten, yeah, all that good stuff. That's great. We all know in those conferences, there's about 4 teams that can legitimately say they've got a chance at winning that conference. And, as far as our conference goes, we got 14 teams. I'd say every given year, you're probably staring at 10 to 12 in our conference. So if we can get the right mix of players in here and we do well enough to win our conference, which I think we've got a good enough staff. We are recruiting at a level to put us on that pace here very shortly. So I think if you win the American Conference, to know that you're going to go to the playoffs makes it a really, really exciting time at Florida Atlantic for sure.
Coach, you were away from the college game for a couple years, came back last year. Now that you've got your sea legs about you, I would guess a little bit more. Just kind of what was your initial impression jumping into the situation of Boca Raton, playing in the American, and now what does this spring mean in terms of the program and moving forward and strengthening it?
Yeah, well, when we decided to get back into it, my family and I, we said the job's got to check 2 boxes. Our family's got to be happy living there. And you got to be able to win championships. And in today's college football, I would argue those are 2 things that are hard to find in combination with a job. And we felt like this was one of them. We knew you go 4-8 for the first losing record as a head coach, and you scratch your head a lot over Christmas break, and you've got a lot of time to think about it. And as much as this place reminds me, because of the conference, because of the fertile recruiting grounds, because of the rise, it reminds me of Houston. When we took over Houston, that was an 8-win team. Tony Levine and his staff had done a really good job, and they were not too far off. And we just kind of put them over the edge to win 13 games that first year. But then you fast forward, and when we took over the second place I took over at the University of Texas, that was 3 straight years of losing for the only time in that school's 100 and something years of playing football. And we squeaked by with 6 wins, barely. But it took us a good year to get our kind of guys and our culture established. And if you guys remember, that year 2 was when we won 10 games and, beat Oklahoma, beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And we have that same feeling here. Although we didn't win 6, just enough to get to a bowl game last year, similar type feel. Last year's team was 1-5 in 1-score games. So we had just enough talent to be in it, but not dominant enough talent to carry us. And we had just enough culture to be in it, but not good enough culture to carry us. And we feel like we've improved those 2 things, the talent level and culture. And I haven't been this excited about a season in a long time.
You mentioned the record last year and first losing season of your head coaching career. You laid out kind of like how that occurred and why that occurred, but was that tough to handle in the moment, or was that just part of the growing experience? Like, how did you handle that personally?
Not well. I don't handle losing well, and it's the first time as a head coach not being bowl eligible, and first time not qualifying for a bowl game. I think since my second year at Iowa State back in like 09 or 10, it's been like 15 years, and so it's been a long time. But we feel like we're on the right track. You can't, in the shape that it was in, I think it would have been unrealistic to expect much more. I do think we had more in us. I fault myself and our staff. Like I said, our culture was just good enough, not dominant enough, and that's on us, and we've got to do a better job there. But you can't cut them all when you show up. You got to travel 70 every week, and we did our best to identify the ones that could help us win, that would be the best fit for the way that we do things, and we made the most out of it, and we're happy to be on the other side though now, and getting ready to kind of head onto this ascent, if you will.
Tom, you're in an area that has just unbelievable talent in Florida, and probably per capita. I know that Louisiana, Georgia, and a couple other places are also there. You've been in Texas. You have roots there, and we know how great this state is. How much does your connection at all, coaching in Texas, help you perhaps bring some of this talent to what is already a fertile state in Florida?
Not a whole lot. Yeah, we don't go too far. We go into South Georgia and Atlanta, and that's about it. The three counties that are make up our neighbors, Dade County to our far south, Broward County where Fort Lauderdale is, and then Palm Beach County where we are. Any given year, all of the Division I football signees in the state of Florida, something like 80% come from those three counties. So, and they're all within an hour's drive from campus. We're a mile and a half from the sand at the beach. We've got a lot to sell. And again, in today's name, image, and likeness world, and the fact that if you're going to win the American Conference, you're probably going to the playoffs. We feel like we offer, if we can get the money right, if our collective and everybody can get the money comparable to what some of these others are doling out, then we feel like we could have the next Ed Oliver, a 5-star guy that was smart as maybe any recruit that I recruited, because he said, Coach, if I don't get hurt, it doesn't matter where I play in college. I'm going to go to the NFL. And he was right. He was the 9th pick after 3 years at Houston. And he said, so I want to go where I'm comfortable. I want to represent my city, and I want to do really good things for the University of Houston. And we feel like we can do that here with the local talent that we have, because you don't need anything more than what FAU can provide you in order for success on the field and in the classroom.
Yeah, you barely have to get on planes anymore, right? To go recruiting.
Yeah, I didn't at Texas though either. Oh. That was pretty nice too.
Tom, what did you learn in your time away from college football? Did something? Was it a decompression? You still were involved in the game. What did you learn about yourself when you returned to college during that time away?
One, I missed the players. I realized, you kind of have an opportunity to take stock and kind of make sure you're doing things for the right reasons. And I miss being around the players and miss being a part of their lives and helping them grow. And I knew that college football was going to be different when I got back in. I knew that the players were going to be different. And, our messaging or the message may be the same, but the messaging might have changed a little bit. We're a little gentler in the way that we coach. And I didn't by any means say soft. I just meant we meet kids where they need to be met, and we still find a way to hold them to some very, very high standards and difficult standards, because that's what we'll always do. But if there's a change, it just comes from probably change in any given time as you turn the page to new generations, especially with the change in our game happening at such a rapid rate all at once. Adaptation is key, and we're adapting every year. But to be able to do it for at least one of those years, living at home and coaching my 8-year-old baseball team and doing all that was a heck of a time that I'll miss for a long time. But I'm glad to be back doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Coach, you mentioned just the era of change and not necessarily all for the worse or all for the better. Everybody's got their own position on it, but how different was it sitting in a recruit's living room? Was the conversation the same as it was 2 years ago when you were doing it, or was it a bit different than it was 2 years ago when you last did it?
It was for us, and it still is. I think it's certainly different than at the last place I coached than what it was 4 years ago when I was there. There was no money, didn't exist. You were selling kids on the university, the education, the power of everything, and that's kind of where we're at still here. The recruits, we're still not battling for recruits that are getting paid by collectives directly out of high school. So we're doing really, really well recruiting high school kids. We signed the second most, I believe, in our conference of high school signees, because we feel like in order to win the American Conference, to have the players requisite to do it, you gotta pay them one way or the other. Your collective is going to have to pay them on the front end, probably in the portal for us, and you're probably you're paying for some baggage probably there, or you find great freshmen, you develop the heck out of them, and one of them turns into the leading receiver in the country like we had last year, and you hope that you can be competitive enough to win the Power 5 schools or their collectives come calling, to get them to go be brand ambassadors for their collective.
When the basketball team made their run last spring, and I know that that last year was your first year, does that help? Because we know where the revenue comes from, and it's what you're coaching, football. But men's basketball can bring in some as well. I'm not sure exactly about the pecking order at Florida Atlantic, but how much does just that attention help?
It's immeasurable. I know coaches are prone to hyperbole, and I'm no exception, but I would argue it is the most impactful thing that's happened in this university since it opened its doors. If you go look at every metric, will tell you by being in the Final Four, it was something like $750 billion worth of exposure when you compile all of it together. So we take a lot of pride in that. They did a great job putting us on the map. I would argue that Howard Schnellenberger and a couple of those great teams that Coach Kiffin had did the same for our football program. But this is a new era. But I think our applications are up, our attendance is up. It has done nothing but energize this campus and been something that we've tried to feed off of.
That's a great answer. I appreciate that. Go.
Well, I mean, Coach, just from my perspective, I grew up in South Florida, and what I always thought of Boca was that, that's the old people. Like, I lived in Fort Myers, and there were a lot of old people in Naples, and, that's old. But, Boca used to be, the one that every other city could make fun of because their population was so old. I found out last year that FAU has since flipped that on its ear, and it's a young, happening, hot place now.
I was surprised. I thought once you being a native Floridian, you can kind of understand. I thought once you got past kind of Fort Lauderdale, it just became sleepy, beachy retirement communities. But no, Boca Raton is not what I had expected. We're 150,000 people. We've got 5 high. This is a very happening place, if you will. We're the last stop south in Palm Beach County, so real estate's great here too. So there's a lot to like. We do have my commute to work goes from 12 minutes in the summer and early fall to about 16 minutes in the winter and early spring, because there are a lot of snowbirds here. But other than getting used to the extra 5 minutes of traffic, we have enjoyed immensely our year here in Boca, for sure.
Can't let you go without asking about your former college roommate in Dave Aranda, who had that spectacular 21 team. The last couple of years has been a struggle. He's had to change a lot of his staff. You've been at places when you've done that yourself. What are your thoughts about how Dave has handled his first ever head coaching job? And do you guys ever still stay in touch and kind of like trade secrets?
No, I don't know about secrets. You know Dave. I don't think I'm getting any secrets. I don't think I'm getting any secrets out of him. That's for sure. But no, we keep in regular communication. I would tell him when making some changes on your staff, just pray that the world's largest pandemic in the last 200 years doesn't show up that season when you're trying to acclimate 7 new coaches and players to a staff. No, Dave will do great. Dave's as bright a coach, as relatable to the players of the coaches I've been around. He's super smart. I hated going against his defenses when I had to. He'll be just fine. Dave's going to have that figured out. The Big 12 is certainly going to look different, but I'm excited for him in this new era of the Big 12, and still consider him a very good friend. Thank you very much for your time, Tom. Appreciate it. Tom Herman, head football coach at Florida Atlantic, with us on 365 Sports. And, yeah, that run the basketball team made last spring really did bring much more information, updated information on a city that's just gorgeous in an incredible place to live on the southern part of the east coast of Florida.
You know, and look, I've long on this show said that Tom Herman was he's an intense dude. He's still an intense dude, but he does sound happy. And I don't think that was true necessarily the end. Like, there's a lot of stress on that last couple of years at Texas. And it's awesome to hear a guy sound happy and energized. He sounds like Coach Herman from Houston that we used to have on the show occasionally when he was there, like, as opposed to Texas where, I mean, again, that job, if you're not like specifically carved for it, can really get to you, and then the world that, like, again, it happened at the end, like he mentioned, can get to you a little bit. And I think that I'm excited to see what he can do at FAU for sure.
Yeah, I still don't know that we've quite all dealt with what happened a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you really think about it, like, we just kind of pushed on through, you know, and I think sometimes it is good to sit and look back and realize, like, oh yeah, certain situations are a bit unique and not maybe what you planned for, and curveballs that you weren't expecting, and, you know, just things like that. But yeah, I mean, I could never say that I was like the biggest, Tom Herman fan in the world. And I do think that at Texas, that the pressure of that job, probably just where he was personally, I mean, you don't never know, like, just where people are in life. I think that experience, and then, you know, having a couple of years, get away from the game, do it or look at it a little bit differently. Coach his son's little league team. You know, just people grow up, people mature, people change for the better, for the worse. And it sounds like he's definitely making positive strides forward. And now it's just a matter of getting those positive strides out on the football field and getting Florida Atlantic to a place where he's getting back to his being in bowl games, because it's interesting to ask him that, because that's not something he's ever experienced as a head coach, is not having a team make a bowl game. So that was,
and 5-0 when he was in a bowl game.
Yeah. So he sounds like he's in good spirits. Sounds like, you know, they've got some work to do, but just like everybody else about this time of year. So looking forward to seeing what they can do with it. And I really appreciate his time. Like, I never, like, when you mentioned we were talking to Tom Herman, it was just kind of out of nowhere, really, but I'm glad that we did, and it was cool to hear from him, and good luck to him.
We do 100 more times.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love talking to coaches.
We will never not want to talk to a college football head coach, ever. I mean, no matter what. In fact, reached out to a ton of media relations people in the last week, as spring drills have either started, about to start, or whatever. We'll get a bunch of them on, too.
I will also...
But just like randomly, Florida Atlantic. We'll do it.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
One of the things that I've always respected about Tom Herman is he has no... I mean, I'm sure he has a little bit of it, but there's no coach speak to him, really, right? Like, we got straight answers. We didn't get, we're going to play owl football, you know?
Right,
like, this is what, you don't...
Or pretending as though they're all on the same playing field, you know, or that he's dealing with the same things that, like, Kalen DeBoer's dealing with right now, or and acknowledging that like when he sits and talks to a recruit, it's a bit different than if Michigan rolls in and the conversations are a little bit different, but it's still good to get that perspective because it's part of the ecosystem that everybody claims to care about, or people claim to care about. It is part of that ecosystem. So to get the Florida Atlantic point of view and other point of views that we'll get, like, I mean, Willie Fritz is at Houston now, but when he was at Tulane, we got that perspective, and various others. It's good to comb the ranks and just see what everybody's thinking.
When he was at Coastal Carolina,
absolutely.
And now Liberty. Retired stockbroker and others, J.G. Nialardo, some of the Houston fans they're bitter.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Tom Herman had that great run, and the next thing you know, he's at the University of Texas. We actually interviewed him, and it was very close to the time when he made the decision to leave. And you know, I know some of you wanted me to ask you, hey, do you regret leaving Houston? I don't think, again, this is me. This is not me as a University of Houston alum or whatever, but I can't imagine that you would regret going to Texas, even though it is a freaking sledgehammer to be a coach there. It did not work out great. He had the one team that beat Oklahoma, beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. I'm not sure if it changed who he was or it made him into something he wasn't. I don't know, but I can't imagine with the money he got at Texas, although Houston would have absolutely taken care of him and had a nice run with Levine setting him up with the 8-win season before.
Yeah, timing is everything, and that's an opportunity that 99.9% of people would have taken. You know, it's easy to look back and say it after the fact of like, well, if you knew what you knew now, but he didn't know that then. I mean, he was humming as much as you could be humming along at Houston. I mean, he had a program of that stature as all cylinders as they could be in that version of college football, and there wasn't really much more that he could have gone beyond doing than what he had done. So, I mean, yeah, that was a logical next step, and I guess the takeaway would be not wondering that question from him, but I think how highly he speaks of Houston. Like in that interview, he speaks very highly of it, and sounds like he's got very fond memories, as you would expect that he does. So, you know, timing's everything. Things happen for a reason. I do believe that most of the time, and you know, that was a really great stretch for them. But Houston's in a good place now, in part because of that, and in part because of what they were able to do just a few years ago. And I love him for how much of a superstar he helped make Greg Ward, who's from my hometown.
Absolutely.
And was not a guy I expected to be like in Heisman conversations at various points, you know, towards the end of his career there at Houston, especially for a guy so undersized. But then again, he proves everybody wrong because he's been in the NFL for like 7 years at this point, off and on. As a wide receiver. So yeah, those Greg Ward, Tom Herman teams, they were disruptive in a good kind of way.
We tried to patch in retired stockbroker with a phone call to his cell. Garrett tried to call him to patch him in for a question for Tom Herman because he wanted to ask him a question. And retired stockbroker Garrett blocked your number?
Yeah, he definitely has me blocked, Smoky. I tried like 3 times. He just blocked me.
Damn. That would have been fun.
It would have been.
It would have been a lot of fun. Thank you to Tom Herman, also Florida Atlantic, the accessibility. Yeah. Appreciate the time. Now, when we come back off the radar, around the corner, top 5 in an hour. So a lot more to get to, including John McClain on the opening of the NFL and free agency. Cowboys signed a long snapper.
Trent Sieg.
I'm going to run down. I'm going to spend most of the segment outside of a couple of combat sports notes, just as we get into delve further into the freak show, sideshow attractions when it comes to our combat sports. I'm going to touch on that.
How dare you call it that?
But that's what it is at its core. That's what it is. It's a tale as old as time, and nothing new really. But yeah, I'm going to get into that, but mostly going to go over NFL signings and the big news today. So
let me read these two from JG and retired stockbroker on Herman. Smokey, Paul, and Craig, I wouldn't regret leaving to Texas. If he regrets anything, it's how he handled it. Maybe even then everyone moved on. It wasn't the end of the world for anybody. And also retired stockbroker, and I've heard this, it was just a very hard stretch for us. Browse to Baylor, Sumlin to A&M, Herman to Texas. Yeah. Put yourself in that position after number 8 and kicking Florida State's ass in the Peach Bowl. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. About that. You don't have to apologize for that. That was a wake-up call.
Yeah.
That was a wake-up call. Well, and the thing is, it was a wake-up call, and then Jimbo left the next year, And so it's but it would
But if he wouldn't have left and they would have been pretty good and competitive, then you might not have Mike Norvell.
Yeah, no, that was the punctuation was that big win over Florida State. I was thinking of just their whole totality of the season, but wasn't thinking of that specifically. But yeah, you're right. That was a big time win, and definitely understand that from the Houston perspective. Absolutely, yep. I'm not going to tell anybody how they should feel about it. I just think that he's a different sounding guy than he was 4 years ago when all this was, or no, more than that, several years ago when all this was initially going down. But yeah, I definitely understand that Houston perspective, and you guys have moved on and have a great football coach in Willie Fritz now that I'm very excited to see what he can do with that program. I saw a little clip of him at a basketball game. He seems to be like over the moon excited to be back in Texas and now at Houston. And, good luck to Tom Herman, like we've been saying. Appreciate his time, and hopefully they can get over the hump and back to a bowl game.
All right, when we come back, Craig's off the radar. Again, around the corner, John McClain in the top 5, David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak, and this is 365 Sports.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome back to 365 Sports. Time for a little Off the Radar here on a Tuesday. Do this Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. Take a look at various stories from around the world of sports, and sometimes they're things that we've kind of touched on in some way, some form or fashion, and most of the time, however, I like to kind of shake it up a little bit. But I mentioned some freak show fights and some some carny-like activity going on in the world of sports, for lack of a better term. Carny's associated widely with pro wrestling, but when I think of freak show fights, I'm not talking about the bearded lady versus the giant man or anything, but in terms of today's sports world, we see quote-unquote freak show fights when it comes to these crossover matchups in the sport of boxing. And you may have seen some of the highlights from this past weekend. Didn't talk about it, I think,
that was
all last week, but we've gotten a lot of these influencers turned athletes fighting other influencers or fighting tomato cans, but I have to give Francis Ngannou a lot of credit. Heavyweight star, formerly of the UFC, who has decided to move on and go join another organization after not being able to come to terms after a lengthy back and forth, months and months, if not years of negotiations with Dana White. He has decided to move on to another organization in the PFL. But up first, and this past weekend, he took part in a boxing matchup, and it wasn't against some influencer, wasn't against some 94-year-old. And look, he's not Logan Paul or Jake Paul or any of these guys. He's Francis freaking Ngannou. He's a proven professional MMA fighter. But I don't know about stepping in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua's like... How about you do line up the tomato can? That probably would have been a better idea for you.
At least first.
Start off with maybe a different tact and maybe go the influencer route as far as trying to get your boxing career underway. But he recently joined the PFL, and he had previously fought in Tyson Fury. So he's gone back-to-back with these boxing matchups. First one against Tyson Fury, that was the Battle of the Baddest back in 2023 in Saudi Arabia. He did get a knockdown, and there was some controversy as to what the final tally actually was. It was a split decision. There was a lot of controversy, but this past weekend, back in Saudi Arabia, and that's really where these freak show fights, as I coined them or terming them, these exhibitions, that's where it's coming from, is the Saudi money. They have the money to put together Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. And so that's what we got this past weekend. And second round knockout, it was very much a clash of a guy who's a very, very good boxer and a heavyweight champion caliber boxer versus a guy who is dabbling in boxing to make massive paydays. But we got that this past weekend with Ngannou losing to Anthony Joshua. Did y'all happen to see any of the highlights from this?
I did. And I remember when SNL did a sketch about Conor McGregor when he was doing it, and the bit was, how are you going to win this fight? And he's like, well, I'm very good at kicking. And they're like, well, you can't kick.
Yeah.
It is, and it's such a simple joke, but it's taking out a large part, of what they do in UFC is a completely different thing, and you're only allowed to do one thing in boxing. You can't kick, right. You can't knee, you can't tackle a guy, none of those things you can do. You just have to punch him in different parts of his body until he falls down. None of it. There's one strategy to boxing as far as weapon you can use. So,
you got your two hands and that's about it.
It's like having a machine gun for normal times, and then they give you a musket.
I don't think anyone understands one of the most devastating parts of the UFC and all that is the kick. I mean, it is like a taser.
Yeah, it can, to the head, to the body, to the knees, to the wherever.
The thigh, to the midsection.
Well, there's that. There's wrestling. There's elbows. There's, submissions. There's all kinds of things that you have to account for, whereas in boxing, you're accounting for the boxing part of it. I think boxing, the science of that gets very underrated and just how difficult that is. So it's one thing to go and face a guy who is like 27 or I don't even know what a tomato can-like record would be. It's another thing to face Anthony freaking Joshua. So, multiple knockdowns. Anthony Joshua gets the win, and Francis Ngannou, after the split decision that was controversial against Tyson Fury, this left no doubt whatsoever that the boxer was the better fighter in the boxing situation, and that's not all that surprising. Francis Ngannou will go on to the PFL, and he's made a lot of money, but he is now going to get back to it. But I bring that up mostly because we didn't really talk about it last week, and how attracted are you guys to the fights like that? Is there any appeal to you guys at all at this point?
No,
I know you don't care about the influencers, but does a Francis Ngannou versus an Anthony Joshua. Like that to me is a little more meaty.
It's
no pun intended.
Didn't Ngannou fight somebody earlier that was a
Tyson
pretty,
Fury?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, who's a hell of a he's the champion. Yeah.
Heavyweight champ.
But yeah, it's a little more intriguing, but I just wish I could feel that they're better at boxing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
I feel like that they're going to do this, and I like the weird thing about the sideshow fights and the freak show fights is there's the assumption that everyone can get in a fight. We can have a melee in here right now, and we all could fight, but I can also play like Smokey, and I could challenge Smokey to golf right now. I can play golf. Smokey plays all the time. Like, if you're going to fight, who's going to fight somebody who does the same thing all the time, to me,
right?
Yeah, it's just not the same thing. And I would think, the boxers, not many of the boxers have made the offer to like, I'll do yours and you do mine. Like they're
that hasn't happened.
They're not
much.
doing that. So again, that's why it's to me a little bit hard to get on board with it. In your brain, it should make sense because like, oh well, I've seen Ngannou punch a guy. He punches really hard. Yeah, but you've also seen him punch that guy really hard after he kicked him and threw him on the ground.
Right.
And with different types of gloves as well. The boxing
yeah.
gloves are also a major difference when you're getting punched. I think Francis Ngannou's knocking me out either way, but he's definitely knocking me out easier with the MMA gloves on than he is with the boxing gloves. Now, I say all that to say and gauge y'all's interest because along lines with this, there's another matchup, freak show, sideshow, carnival attraction, what have you, that was announced this past week in line with Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. Jake Paul, best known for being an influencer, but now boxing over the last few years and being relatively successful at it. It was announced that he is going to be taking on Mike Tyson at AT&T Stadium in Arlington on July the 20th. Home of the Dallas Cowboys has seen a lot of different attractions, but this July, Mike Tyson comes out of retirement to fight YouTube influencer, social media guy turned boxer Jake Paul. Jake Paul, 9-1, has 6 KOs, and there's debate about the strength of that record, but Mike Tyson has not fought in nearly 20 years, and that was a knockout loss to Kevin McBride back in June of 2005. Tyson will be 58 years old. Now, he did have an exhibition with Roy Jones Jr. Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago now at this point. So he's dabbled slightly, but now he is going to be fighting Jake Paul in Arlington coming up this June. And so what do you guys think about Mike Tyson getting back into the ring to fight a social media influencer turned boxer?
It is almost the plot of Rocky Balboa. I mean, if you take out the current heavyweight champion and replace him with social media influencer. But the only thing I'm curious about is I know he hasn't fought in 20 years, but Mike Tyson is a naturally strong person.
Right.
So I do think that when he does land punches on Jake Paul, they're probably the hardest punches that Jake Paul might have ever felt, even though Mike Tyson is almost 60 years old.
Right.
But it's still a sideshow. So while, he might be able to get some good shots in and make him hurt a little bit, I mean, he was walking with a cane a couple years ago. He's not moving well.
No, he's not.
And Mike Tyson, at his peak, was one of the probably 3 best athletes in the world. That he was so strong, so fast, like everything. Like you could have put Mike Tyson in a lot of sports. He probably would have excelled at them because he was such a natural athlete. Like he might have had Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders type ability as an athlete. Now, Mike had other problems, obviously, but boxing was perfect for him. And he had Mike Tyson not had those those other issues and being convicted of rape and all these other things.
That was one of them.
There's really tough problems that he had. You might be talking about him in a different way, and people do talk about him with the greats of boxing, but being more consistent like some of those guys because he was just as talented as any boxer that's ever boxed.
Yep. So he is going to be 58 years old when he takes the ring.
Tyson can throw clips out there and highlights, and I sure as hell would not want to mess with him, put myself in a ring with him, or pretty much anybody that ever has boxed ever. my biggest concern is you can see the little clips of 30 seconds, which used to be how long his fights lasted. Mm-hmm. But as you noticed in some of his fights near the end were guys who were bigger, who could also just muscle him around. Now, I just looked up, how tall do you think Jake Paul is?
6'1", something like that.
6'1". I thought he was much taller than that. 6'1", 200. Tyson's 5'10", listed at 220, whatever it might be. So I thought that Paul was just going to be so much bigger that he could weather some body punches or whatever. So I don't know. I thought he was bigger than that. When I first heard this, I said, he'll just be a boring fight. Tyson will run out of gas.
They'll both make
They'll
$1 billion.
both make a lot of money, and it might end up being a 12-round split decision. I don't know. My concern for Tyson, whether he wins or not, is if he wins, is he going to want to fight again? Because he's already taken a lot of shots to the head, and all it would take is to have one of these grueling, even if not a lot of punches are thrown, at that age, getting hit in the head that many times cannot be healthy.
No, I can't imagine it is. I think there's a lot of people that have concern over his age, and that's part of why I bring it up. You do have, Jake Paul has fought a lot of MMA fighters. Ben Askren was one of his earlier fights. Tyron Woodley, Anderson Silva, who was aged out at that point. And he's made his bones on fighting guys like that. Nate Diaz, if y'all remember that one. And he has had some of those types of fights. And then there's been a little bit of boxing sprinkled in with lesser-known people, and as he's trying to kind of get into the being more of an actual boxer and getting away from sort of the sideshow, freak show fights. But Tyson's going to be 58. Paul is 27 years old. And that's what their ages will be come July 20th.
And where is the fight, Craig?
AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. But Dana White did comment on it. He said, he gets mad when I do this. He's good friends with Mike. He gets mad when I do this, but Mike's 60, man. I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Who gives a blank is what I think. It's not my fight. I love Mike Tyson personally as a friend, and he's one of my favorite athletes of all time. Let's see what he can go in there and put together a training camp and come in. I don't like to see guys fighting at that age. It'd be a 31-year age difference during that fight. You guys know what I think of that stuff. So there was Dana White commenting on his buddy Mike Tyson getting back into the ring. I don't have the totals on the money that will be made, because a lot of that will have to do with how many pay-per-views are sold. But yeah, that's definitely off the radar. That's not something I expect we'll be talking much more about. But what was also interesting, and part of why I reeled this in, was the fight is going to be on Netflix.
Yep.
So that's part of the interest here. And if you're a subscriber to Netflix, you will be able to watch this Paul Tyson fight. But Dana, when talking about the Netflix aspect of it, was interesting, just given how much we talk about cable and streaming and college football and all of that. Well, he's under the Endeavor umbrella, which is the owners of the UFC and also now the WWE, and both of those brands under the TKO umbrella working alongside one another. TKO Group Holdings under primary owner Endeavor, but WWE just signed a Netflix deal. They're taking Monday Night Raw to Netflix, which is a huge departure from being on, for example, the USA Network for many, many years. So White, on the matchup being on Netflix, he said, I think that Netflix should have gotten into live sports years ago. I think they're late to the game, but they are a force. When you look at the amount of the homes that they're in worldwide, the show Reacher, I posted about it. I love that show. I bleeping hate TV. I don't watch any TV show hardly ever. I don't watch movies anymore, but I love the show Reacher. I can watch it whenever I want to. I can watch it when I get home. I can watch it next week. Live sports like UFC, you had to watch tonight. As all these massive streaming companies start to get bigger and bigger, they have to be involved in live sports. So there's a little Dana White on Netflix hosting this and what that could look like as far as get into the ring for more live sports. So anyways, just something very much off the radar that I thought I would throw out there. Meanwhile, in the NFL ranks, a lot of activity going on with free agency and a lot of big moves being made, especially by the Dallas Cowboys, right? Wait, not so much. Paul, how are we feeling day 2 of the Cowboys' ventures into free agency here?
So I'll give you my realistic vision of it and how I feel is that, one, I'm glad that they don't go overboard and try to get in bidding wars with teams, because I think that serves them well, and they can't do it. Their cap situation is where they can't. I would like to see them, though, make a move that signals that they would be really all in on something, because this strategy has not worked for almost 30 years now, and they keep kind of going back to it. So, look, you're going to have to change something up. And if it means landing a big free agent, then do that. And the last really big free agent they got, I would say is Terrell Owens. And they had to wait for him to crazy his way out of Philly to even make that happen. Like, Brandon Carr was the last big deal they got, but Brandon Carr was not, he's not Terrell Owens. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So the last time they made a move for a guy, that's why I kind of want to see them get it on Saquon Barkley, because I think he's someone who fits what they're trying to do and can help Dak out a lot. And they let the Eagles get him. And I'm not talking about 5 big free agent deals. I'm talking about one. Like one guy that's going to make you better at a position, at an X factor position like that. That's what they have not done, and that's what I think fans want. They don't want them to go sign, give any of the top 5 free agents and do that, but just one.
I get that, but most of the worst free agent signings are also the first day.
Yes, true, but
because people are overpaying and almost sometimes bidding against themselves.
But they don't have a starting center, a starting left tackle, a starting middle linebacker, a starting outside linebacker, or a starting running back right now, and they're going to cut one of their starting wide receivers, and they probably need a third cornerback. And the better guys on the market that you could have gotten still even for probably a pretty good deal are going away, and that is trouble.
Who besides Barkley has signed with somebody else, or at least committed to somebody else that would help the Cowboys?
I would say Christian Wilkins would have helped the Cowboys out a lot, but that was a deal that was too big.
Could they have paid him that much?
Yeah, maybe not. And so that's true. So no, but see, they're not even there are guys making 1 and 2 year deals right now for reasonable money. They're not even doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me. It's okay, you don't want to go 5 years with a defensive tackle, but can you go 2 years? Like Derrick Henry signed for 2 years with the Ravens. You can't give Derrick Henry 2 years? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
So you just mentioned it, some of the headlines here. Derrick Henry signing with the Baltimore Ravens, one of the bigger news pieces today, as there's been a lot of activity. 2 years, $16 million for the former Titans running back. So he heads on to an already ready-made contender there in Baltimore. Any particular feelings on a Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson backfield?
Love it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to watch it.
Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals traded running back Joe Mixon, the former Oklahoma Sooner, to the Houston Texans. So he will now join a backfield that includes a star rookie C.J. Stroud. So originally Mixon was going to get released, but instead ended up turning into a trade, although the terms aren't official yet. But he was moving teams regardless. So Joe Mixon, after a pretty lengthy amount of time at this point in Cincinnati, is going to be a member of the Houston Texans, which is a team that I'm very interested in watching just how they continue to evolve now, with Stroud clearly being a dude and having a young head coach that seems to really have brought a lot of energy and some other good pieces as well. That's going to be a fun team to watch to kind of see how they grow around C.J. Stroud.
They still need to draft somebody, and maybe that's next year or this year, but Joe Mixon certainly helps them improve at a position they were not good at last year, even though Devin Singletary had a decent year for Devin Singletary. But you're not going to win that division repeatedly with Devin Singletary at running back. Ask the Bills,
right.
The years they had Devin Singletary. He's a fine player to have in your roster, but you're not winning with Devin Singletary. I think they can win consistently with Joe Mixon next year. I think he's going to help them out. And he's not, again, it's a good move. He's got 1 year left on his deal. If they want to throw him another year in an option year or something to balance out cap issues, which they don't have at all, but they have plenty of cap room. Heck, this is a great move for the Texans.
Yeah, just some other names that have signed in the last 24 hours or so. Can't go over them all because there's been multiple, but you had our buddy Aaron Jones, who we talked about. Didn't take him long to find the new spot. He's going to be in the NFC North and not have to move all that far.
It's signed a 1 year contract.
Yeah.
Again, that's what I'm talking about. The Cowboys need guys for 1 year and they can start working their draft. But a 1 year contract for Aaron Jones, you can't do that.
Yep. But he is going to be in the NFC North and play against the Packers twice as he signs with the Minnesota Vikings. Commanders signed former Heisman Trophy winner Marcus Mariota to deepen their quarterback room. That's not going to be the guy moving forward very clearly, but it is an interesting name, and he had one hell of a college football career, that's for certain. The Ravens did gain Derrick Henry, but they lost linebacker Patrick Queen, who signed a 3-year, $41 million deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Actually, no, that one, Smokey.
That
one
bothers you?
right there. That's the one. Yeah. That, like, maybe even more than Barkley.
Did the Cowboys need linebacker help?
Yeah. I mean, that's the one. I was like, that's a good player right there. That
won a ring.
Yeah, and the Ravens have
hell of a player in Nebraska.
And because the Ravens draft guys knowing that they've got to like move contracts around, they had to kind of know that Patrick Queen was going to go, but so they drafted his replacement 2 years ago, and then they got Roquan Smith as well. So they've moved this all around. The Ravens have. The Cowboys just wake up in the morning as like, oh, crap, no linebackers.
Yeah, and I think you must have been referring to Levante David, who signed a new deal because he played at Nebraska. Patrick Queen played at LSU.
No, I was talking about
Levante David signing a one-year deal to remain with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's one of the other headlines as well today. Falcons got Darnell Mooney as they now build around Kirk Cousins and that massive new contract of his. They added a receiver in Darnell Mooney for a 3-year, nearly $40 million contract. And at this point, I think I'll leave it there. Those are pretty much the high points of free agency over the last day or so. And we got into some of the freak show stuff. So, there's a few things off the radar.
All right, Craig, thank you very much. Every Tuesday and Thursday around 4:45 with Off the Radar, some offbeat, or in today's news, a lot of those crossover fights that we've seen that bring in a lot of money. And Netflix, you would think, probably going to have some people that still think Mike Tyson is back when he was 22 years old.
Yeah, but man, are we going to be able to handle it if like 60-year-old Mike's getting knocked out by freaking 20?
That's the fear.
Yeah, I know.
That's the fear. Or,
also,
I can't wait to hear how much money he must be getting so much money for this.
And yeah, good for him on that. But the other thing I don't
what
want
do you think?
I don't want Jake I like
double-digit millions.
Yeah,
God,
I don't want
sure.
I don't want
better be.
I don't want Jake or Logan Paul to be able to brag like I knocked out Mike
Tyson. That's the whole fear, right?
Okay, great. You won Punch Out. Good for you. You figured out the way to the top. But
here's my fear: Tyson obliterates him and fights again.
No. I don't think he was. I don't think it's about getting back into boxing.
No,
for him.
but it'll be another one of these trash can.
Who's going to fight Anthony Joshua?
Well,
I mean,
no, that would
destroyed.
End up bad.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, I could see if he were to decimate Jake Paul, because Logan is now I remind myself Logan's the wrestler of the two, but Jake's more of the boxer, I guess.
And they're both douchebags. No.
they are supremely popular.
Yeah,
they're just a little bit younger for us. We didn't grow up watching them on YouTube every day like a lot of people have. But yeah, they're immensely popular and successful, and they've turned this whole thing. I mean, it's fitting that one of them's in wrestling because that's where they've learned some of the carny aspects of promotion and entertainment and sideshows and attractions, and that's very much what you're going to get with Mike Tyson back in a boxing ring. But I would love to see him knock out Paul and leave it at that, and then drop his gloves in the ring, and that would be my dream ending. But I don't know. We'll see. That age difference is a little bit scary. So there you go.
Kyle Visser, Endeavor. Do you want to speculate, you guys, on your Mark Endeavor relationship? We've had Endeavor on the show to discuss the relationship, marketing, and ideas, and all that. So I'm not. Maybe try to clarify that, Kyle, if you don't mind. Retired stockbroker. My question would have been to Art Briles and Kevin Sumlin and Tom Herman: if the money matched and the University of Houston was in the Big 12, or the next year they would be in the Big 12, would you have left?
Sumlin, yes. Herman, yes. Yep. Briles, no.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because, again, and no offense to you, retired stockbroker, A&M and Texas it's kind of a different animal, as you know. But Baylor and Houston is, if he was already in the Big 12, he would never have left.
All right, 4:19 coming up. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, and an update from earlier today. Cincinnati came back to beat West Virginia. UCF hammered Oklahoma State. They move into tomorrow men's game tonight. Championship game, Iowa State, 5th-ranked Texas. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com. You go online. You can order whatever you want. Have it picked up by you, delivered to you. And also, when you go online, there's a lot of incentives, offers, discounts, code numbers, etc., for what they have, whether it's just think about the pizza. You could make your own. There's an all meat. There's also the pepperoni and sausage magnifico, which is delicious, which is not quite all meat, but there's a lot of meat on it. And then if you want even a veggie pizza, if you don't want any meat on it or protein. By the way, Marco's Pizza also has pizza bowls, wings, sandwiches. They have the soft drinks if you want them too. Bob Mock is the owner of 5 locations in Waco. There used to be none, like just a handful of years ago. Fastest growing pizza brand in America, and 5 locations here: China Spring, Belmead, Woodway, Hewitt, and Robinson. And go online if you want. Marco's Pizza. Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it.
Shop big savings during the Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Ram 1500 is the most luxurious and technologically advanced Ram 1500 ever. There's a great selection on the lot and ready for immediate delivery. Ram Truck Month sales event is a winner at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Are you ready to elevate your Waco experience to a whole new level? Look no further than the Baylor Club, where you can indulge in one-of-a-kind luxury and unwind in our exclusive lounge area. Located in the heart of McClain Stadium, this elite club offers 5-star member atmosphere for all your work and play needs. With a master culinary team and outstanding hospitality, we take pampering to a whole new level. Weddings, milestones, businesses, and birthdays. A stadium roaring with Bear spirit featuring stunning city skyline views. The Baylor Club truly has it all. The Baylor Club is the destination for Baylor basketball pregame meals, beverages with this special membership offer. If you mention Sikkim 365 or 365 Sports Radio, just ask for John or Devin for details. For interest in membership or your next private event, call 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree for more information on menus, calendars, upcoming special events. Say yes to the Baylor Club today. 254-710-8080 or Google Baylor Club Linktree.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go. Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with us on 365 Sports. John, thanks for your time. So has anything jumped out at you? There were some more decisions and I guess contracts offered and whatever today agreed upon. Anything in particular the first 2 days of free agency that kind of brings more attention to that than anyone else?
Well, there's a lot of things that have stood out. One of them is that the Cowboys don't have a running back. I thought sure they were going to get Derrick Henry. Maybe they were in the running with Derrick Henry. I don't know. I'm guessing not, since they haven't spent more. And the way Dan Quinn is rating the defense, and the Cowboys have the money that they can keep them if they want to, and they all know what they're doing. But they're losing some key players, and there's still a lot of players out there. There's a lot of free agents, and there's still a lot of really good players too. And it's not surprising to me that a lot of running backs have signed. People are like, oh, they're getting $10 million. If you look at the contract, though, they got to do a lot of things to reach $10 million. And it's like musical chairs. If you're a running back and you get an offer, you better take it because you don't want to be the one without a chair. And Derrick Henry going to Baltimore, I think, is the best signing I've seen so far because they run the ball more than any other team. They lead the league in rushing. They got Lamar Jackson. And where you're doing run-pass options with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, it's a little more effective than if it's with J.K. Dobbins, Justice Hill, or Gus. My mind's gone blank.
Gus Edwards.
Gus Edwards went to the Chargers. So I think that's a big-time signing. And people talked about how Henry slowed down. He had a run last year against the Texans in which he hit 23 miles an hour, which is fast. And he did 3 years ago. He didn't play that season. He didn't play a lot of carries early in his career either. So he's not used up. And I think that is the best signing I've seen that can have an immediate impact. You know, pass rushers, great if you have a pass rusher. But like Minnesota had Daniil Hunter, it's 16.5. Did that help them get in the playoffs? No. But a running back can control the offense and he can keep the defense fresh. So that's why I like Derrick Henry, number one.
John, the Texans got Joe Mixon today. They've made a couple other moves. The linebacker from Tennessee, Al-Shakir, who I think is a pretty exciting player. What do you think about what they've done so far?
Well, we knew that Jonathan Bernard was going to leave. They put a budget on players, and if they can get the player within the budget, they'll do it. If not, they're gone. So we knew Jonathan Bernard was gone. We knew their linebacker, Blake Cashman, was probably gone. And so they got Azeez Al-Shakir from the Titans. He was there 1 year after playing for D'Amico Ryans with the 49ers. And the new Titans GM, Rand Cawthorn, signed him because he had been with the 49ers. He led them in tackles, was voted a captain. Everybody loved him. They tried to keep him, but he wanted to be reunited with D'Amico Ryans. And Danico Autry at 33 had 11.5 sacks for the Titans. And he tormented the Texans when he played for the Colts and the Titans, so the Texans signed him. And Joe Mixon, the running back, Joe Mixon started 17 games last year, had a little over 1,000 yards. He had 12 touchdowns, including 3 receiving. And he's in the last year of his contract. He had redone his contract, but it was heavily incentive-laden, and he had him last year. So they knew one more year, and they weren't going to give him any kind of money. So the Texans, instead of letting them cut him and say another team like Dallas or somebody else that needed a back, maybe it drove up the bidding to where he'd make $6 or $7 million a year. They had 3 7th-round picks. They traded 7 for Mixon, and to make sure they got him on a year when he's going to make 5 and change.
I don't know if he'll ever come close to winning a Super Bowl, John, but he sure has made a lot of money. Kirk Cousins now heading off to Atlanta. They clearly had a need there at quarterback, to say the least, and it seems like they got a pretty good player to go and fill that hole for Bijan Robinson and company. Your thoughts on Kirk Cousins, another big payday, and now what can be done in Atlanta?
It was so funny. He was an afterthought, a 4th-round pick when RG3 was the first pick for the Redskins in 2012. And Kirk Cousins was very patient. And when RG3 got hurt, he stepped in, did well enough to end up going to Minnesota. And now, if he plays 5 years on this contract, he will have made $400 million. And that's a tribute to his agent as much as it is him. And the fact is, he's won 1 playoff game. You know, if you think about that, he's won as many playoff games as C.J. Stroud. But he compiles big stats. He has a reputation of not winning big games in prime time or big games. But the fact is, great guys, good leader. They have receivers, running backs. They have good tight end, good offensive line. So I was smart of him to go there and smart of them to sign him because they can jack up ticket prices because their fans are so excited after watching them fail with Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke.
John, is there really a salary cap hell, or is there always a way out?
There's always a way out, David. You can keep pushing it down the road. And what that means is if a player's signing bonus is a 4-year deal for $100 million, then that means against the cap it counts $25 million a year. Your base salary can be a minimum, say it's like Russell Wilson, 1.21. So that means the player's going to get $26.21 million that season. So at the end, when all the money is due, you keep pushing it back. You turn the base salary into signing bonus, and you prorate it like that. But eventually, it's all going to come back out at once. If the cap keeps going up like it has, teams can do that. But at some point, you're going to be in salary cap hell and have to bite the bullet.
John, who to you is the most intriguing free agent still out there?
Danielle Hunter, the pass rusher from Minnesota. He's from here. Texans are interested. He's going to go where he gets the most money. He's 29. He has 16 and a half sacks. And there's still safeties. You know, I do it based on what the Texans need. They signed a bunch of players. They still need another safety to play with Jalen Reed. Jimmy Ward, the other starter, gets hurt every year like he did last year. And Petrie played with second, third, and fourth safeties all signed off the street after the season began because of injury. So there's safeties out there, but, you know, everybody loves those. Everybody loves pass rushers that have a lot of stats, so I'm going to say Hunter.
Are there more good free agent contracts on the opening 24 hours or during the opening 24 hours or worse?
I think that it's hard to say. I don't know. You know, everybody runs out there and gets them immediately, and then there's still a lot more to do. And the reason they even have what's called legal tampering periods, everybody was doing it illegally, and they're still doing it illegally because you're not supposed to talk to free agents from other teams. And at the combine, they do that, and they can't prove it, so you get away with it. But really, it's made tomorrow at 3 o'clock not nearly as much fun as it used to be when it was gentlemen starts your engine. It's always amazing to me how a team like the Raiders in like 2 minutes can have a deal done for Wilkins, defensive tackle, and they are the fastest negotiators in history.
John, it was quiet around here because Baylor didn't have much in the way of prospects like they did maybe a couple years ago. But just any lasting impressions from the Combine? Anything significantly change? Any thoughts one way or the other as far as the draft and some of the main storylines?
A lot of people think, Greg, that because everybody jumped on these running backs, they're not impressed with the running back class. I don't buy that at all. I think you can get veterans really cheap now. And if you don't draft a back in the first 2 rounds, you can get them really cheap there. Like the Texans still have Dameon Pierce, their leading rusher 2 years ago. Now they've signed Joe Mixon. I know they're going to draft a running back at some point to give them some more competition. So I can't wait to see where in the draft, they're a great draft for offensive tackles, wide receivers, and cornerbacks. And one of those positions with the Texans, they still need corners. And so I can't wait for the draft. But we got our second wave coming up. A lot of guys are taking visits now. And then when we get to June, there's going to be players go, ooh, I thought I was going to get more than that. Now I'm going to have to take minimum in a 1-year make-it deal. I love 1-year make-it deals because you know you're going to get the best from that player has. Like the Texans signed cornerback Jeff Okudah from Grand Prairie. He was the 3rd overall pick in 2020 by the Lions. And there's not been a corner drafted higher. First 2 years, injuries killed him. Came back the 3rd year, started 15 games, wasn't very good, and ended up going to Atlanta last year on a 1-year deal. Texans signed into a 1-year make-it deal. He's still only 25, but he knows if he plays well, he's got a chance at 26 to make some good money.
Hey, what was your reaction when the Big 12 a few weeks ago released the combine that's going to be like all teams in Arlington, or in Frisco at one time? Is that it's a unique deal. Do you feel like we might see more of that?
I don't know. That's, Jerry Jones and Stan Kroenke in L.A. have been trying to steal the combine now for the last few years. Everybody in the league likes it in Indianapolis, but money talks.
No, I'm talking about the combined pro day that all of the Big 12
the pro days,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, pro days. I think, hey, if you can do it, the scouts love it because they don't have to spend as much money to go out to every school. Or I think that if you could do more of that, have one like in Frisco, and then you have 4 or 5 more around the country, it would save everybody so much money.
John, Baylor in the Big 12 tournament, the number, 4 seed? 4 seed? 3 seed. Number 3 seed. Did not finish well in Lubbock against Texas Tech, but they seem to have explosiveness, and then there's just little chunks of like 5 minutes that get them in trouble. Your thoughts about the Bears as they enter March Madness?
I think that's what can happen when you have young players. I saw ESPN mock draft at Walker going 8th and Missy 21st. And I said, Missy's going to get pushed all the way out of the NBA down to the D-League if he comes out after a freshman. And you're going to run into it. I'm not really concerned about the Big 12. I'm only concerned, like everybody else, about the NCAA tournament. But it'd be great if they had some momentum. I'd like to see them get another shot at the Cougars.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us most every Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour. Appreciate his time as always. When we come back, Paul Catalina and the top 5, and this is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, 48-foot walk-in humidor with all the greatest names in cigar history. Padron, Cohiba, my favorite, Rocky Patel. And then there's Arturo Fuente and Romeo and Julieta, Macanudo, Ashton, My Father, and more. So they have all the cigars you would ever want. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne know the business, and they are great for you to walk in the door. If you're buying some for yourself, even if you know it pretty well, they can help you with maybe one of the newest hot, I guess you could say, up-and-coming brands or a specific type of cigar. And then they have Vitadreams. It's a CBD product that you take a Vitadream, a gummy, or maybe 2. You kind of learn what you and your body and how it reacts to it. If you struggle at night falling asleep, the Vitadreams can help you too. And the THC product called For Bad Days. I've had like a lower back problem for quite some time, and it's kind of come and gone. And the last maybe few days, it's been a little bit more tingly, and maybe a little bit of a bite into a THC gummy would help you with that, or maybe other pain you have for really serious pain. Vitadreams gummies with CBD at night, also THC product with your pain, and amazing 48-foot walk-in humidor with the best cigars and brands in the world at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, how lovely are your SUVs. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, I love the trucks you have for me. Strong and tough with luxury, room for all my family. Oh, Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, you are the dealership for me.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 free agents that make sense for the Cowboys. Obviously, trying to ball on a budget, which is fine. But there are some guys I think that could help them in the short term, and maybe one or two of them in the long term. And these first two guys are short-term guys for sure. Number 5, tackle Charles Leno. They're going to have to get another swing tackle. They're going to have to get somebody with starting experience too, because we don't know how the draft is going to fall. They draft at 24. That means that they have no control over this thing for 23 full picks. And then for 32 more picks after that. So Charles Leno, who played for Washington, he's an okay player. He's fine. He's a good player. He's not a great player. He's not Tyron Smith. I would like to see them just bring back Tyron Smith if they're going to do this, but that does not appear likely to happen. So Charles Leno from Washington, somebody who could slide in there as a stopgap starter, depending on what happens in the draft and what that first-round draft pick is.
Didn't Sam Howell get sacked more than anybody else in college pro football?
Yes, he did. Yeah. But this is also
I'm not sure I'd want
within
any of
their
Washington's
budget.
offensive
So
line.
yeah, and that's a good point. But I'm trying to fit into their budget and someone who started.
I get it.
Jay's kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's not something I think anybody's going to go too crazy over. But, yeah, if that's the fit, that's the fit. Yeah. And I am curious about Tyron Smith and just where he ends up. I saw some fantasy scenario where he's a chief when this is all said and done, or – even a commander, because they've obviously shown that the link with Dan Quinn is something that they like to take advantage of and utilize those relationships he built previously, as they've already brought in a bevy of Cowboys. So, it's not a name I think most people have focused in on, but for the Cowboys, they're not out star hunting right now. So, this could be a good fit.
Could Tyron Smith end up back in Dallas? I mean,
I think
could.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're trying to wait him out right now.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to do. But I'm just making this list with the assumption it's not going to happen.
No, I thought about that because this would be a Cowboys thing to do. And for Tyron Smith, he's going to go try to get one more large contract, and we'll see if it's out there.
I would love if Charles Leno comes into the huddle, have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
Seen
this? Heard about this?
They're blitzing over here. Have you seen about this blitzing?
Right,
Have you guys heard?
You know, I have a bunch of antique cars.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, Dalvin Cook. The best running back that's left on the free agent market. Now, maybe they could go and make a trade somewhere else. They don't have a lot of draft picks to do that with. But again, you're talking about a stopgap guy and someone who you can pair with Deuce Vaughn until you figure out what you're going to do in the draft. This is the best running back available right now in free agency. He still has a little bit of tread on the tire, so we'll see. And again, you're not talking about Dalvin Cook at a 5-year, $50 million deal. You're talking about Dalvin Cook at 1 year at about $6 million.
Yeah. He did not do much of anything last year. No. I know that's your boy, though. That's your guy. But the Cowboys need a running back, and the options are slim now. I mean, Derrick Henry's off the board. Any hopes that they're going to get some big name as far as that caliber are no longer in play? But Dalvin Cook's still a big name. I just wonder, how much does he have left in the tank at this point?
I think he's got a year left in the tank.
Okay.
To help, in this role where you're also adding someone in the draft.
Yeah, right, but he had a stretch where he was averaging. Well, he had over 1,100 yards 4 consecutive years, and it's 1,500. He doesn't have that, but you don't really need that. What are you looking for? Somebody for 500, 600 yards?
Yeah, I'm if he gets 750 yards and a couple touchdowns, I think they're doing okay, because I would assume the rookie is involved there, and Deuce Vaughn is level.
The running backs, it just disappeared.
If he did that, though, that's 5 times what he did, or 4 times what he did last year.
214, no touchdowns.
Bring Zeke back.
I definitely don't want them to do that. That. But
isn't that you hear about the running back's treads, and it's just remarkable. 9 times out of 10, there are rarely many Walter Paytons and Emmitt Smiths and others that get to play for a long Adrian Peterson. But when it's gone, it's gone.
By the way, here's one, and we just had the guy who could tell us about it on, but Danielle Hunter and the Texans, 2-year deal. So
good for them.
That's they had the money to do it, and there you go. So I looked at the 150, Randy Miller's top 150 free agents, and Dalvin Cook was the best running back available. One of those guys was also Zeke Elliott. So that's the options that they have right now. Or they're going to ride with a rookie, or maybe bring back Rico Dowdle. I also don't think they're going to do that. So
yeah, I mean, they can just go get a guy in the draft. I mean, there's going to be plenty of running backs available at various times.
I guess Alexander Madison would be the best one available, but I don't see them spending Alexander Madison type money And that's saying a lot that, that what they're doing. So, and he's not even, all that great. But yeah, so.
This is a selfish Paul Pig. He wants to buy that Dalvin Cook Cowboys jersey.
I mean,
get that in the collection.
Garrett, I thought we weren't allowed to wear jerseys.
I think Paul would make an exception with that one.
Part of the deal is
frame it.
Part of the deal is Jerry will chip in on the legal fees to get Florida State out of the ACC. Just bring it all up front.
Absolutely. Number 3, Curtis Samuel. This is a player I really like.
I like him.
I really like. He's very versatile. This provides them with an instant upgrade at wide receiver over Michael Gallup, who's going to get released. Somebody who can do a lot of things, who can line up a lot of spots. You can do a ton with them. Heck, you can line them up at running back because you might even need to. So I think this is a player that the Cowboys really need to kick the look. If Washington's going to take all their defensive guys, go get one of the more intriguing players. He dealt with some injury history over a couple years, but really last year I thought he contributed well in an offense that was trying to find itself. And you give this guy to Dak Prescott, I think it's going to work out well. If you have CeeDee Lamb, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Cooks, that's Jake Ferguson, that's weapons for Dak.
Yeah.
And this is affordable. This is an affordable player that you can go get that can do a lot of things for you. But again, now that I've said it and put it out in the universe that I would like to go get a versatile, super athletic guy like Curtis Samuel, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, he's a good player. I mean, that would be a good pickup for them. He was mighty fine in Washington. Not a star, but you don't need a star when you've got CeeDee Lamb at the top of the food chain there. But yeah, definitely a burner and a guy who could do a lot of damage in Dallas with the weapons around him. I saw something earlier today where it was talking about the colleges and how they were affected by free agents or just the college tie-ins. And Ohio State had 17 NFL free agents, which is more than most have had total in the NFL in 5 years. The last 5 years, they had 17 free agents that were all Buckeyes, including him. I just found that fascinating. I don't know where they are in the totals now. I'd imagine Bama's still 1, Georgia's 2, but Ohio State I'd have to think is 3 at worst, you would think, as far as NFL guys.
They have Scary Terry in Washington. They have Jahan Dotson, who they really like.
They don't have to have him.
And they're about to draft a quarterback. And I would also assume that they're going to draft a wide receiver in this draft who matches up maybe a little bit more Cliff Kingsbury type-ish. And look, also, if they lose him, Marquise Brown's out there who went to go play for Cliff Kingsbury. That's one I would not be surprised to see Washington go after as well to get Hollywood Brown. Number 2. DJ Reader, a big space eater at defensive tackle, can be had for a relatively good price, has, again, dealt with some injuries. But right now, we are shopping at the bargain bin for the Cowboys. We are looking for good deals of guys who can help stopgap them. Jonathan Hankins is a free agent. This is an upgrade over him. This can help Mozzie Smith out. Neville Gallimore's a free agent. That guy was moving on anyway. They need some depth at the position. They probably addressed it again in the draft, but this is someone who brings something to the table they haven't really had and has played really well over the years. This is a fit for the Cowboys. Again, it all depends on how long and how much money, but I think this is one. And I'm not one of these people I've said needs a 5-year deal. All of them can be 1, 2, or a 3-year deal with an option year at the end. That's all I'm saying. And DJ Reader would be a good fit. He's a good player.
Yeah, he is a good player and played his college ball at Clemson, which I bring that in because going back to what I was just saying, Ohio State actually the number 2 at last check amount of pros. 61. Now, I don't know when this list was updated in this past year, so I don't know if it's updated today or, whatever, but they had 61 players in the pros last year. That's freaking ridiculous. Alabama had 72. But Clemson's right there, number 5, 43 pros, including DJ Reader. And so, they definitely need offensive line help. And
defensive line.
Defensive line help. And so, that would be a nice, solid pickup.
And number 1. Devin White, linebacker, a very good linebacker, coached by one Dave Aranda in college, by the way. But Devin White to the Cowboys would be a very good thing for them. Demarion Overshone, Damone Clark, all benefit from having a guy like Devin White there. An LSU Tiger, Garrett loves Devin White. I'm sure he would hate it if he was a Cowboy, but as far as I know, number 45 is available, or any number he wants is available. He can go have that with the Cowboys. This is the dude that right now, and it might wind up being Bobby Wagner. I don't know, because he's out there too, and might cost less, but I do think that getting a guy that plays like Devin White on a 1 or 2 year deal for a team that has no real answers at starting linebacker right now, with Overshone coming off the ACL, Vander Esch likely going to retire. Damone Clark played a lot last year and just did not look like he was ready to take on the run. It's good in coverage, but not really a run stopper at running back. They've got to have some answers at that position. They'll also address it in the draft. But again, right now, you don't know what you're going to get in the draft. So you have to prepare as if you're not going to get a linebacker. You're not going to get a running back. You're not going to get a wide receiver. You have to have starters on the roster. They don't have those right now. But Devin White would be my number one.
If you could have had Levante David, I know Levante David was going back to Tampa. Which of those two would you want?
I would take Devin White just because he's a little bit younger, but that's a little bit of Sophie's choice.
Okay.
I mean, they're both really good. Levante David, maybe just because he's such a great, same with Bobby Wagner, I wouldn't turn around having a leader, a dude like that who can command the locker room like they can.
Yep, they need that too. It's amazing. You hear about it. I was still amazed at the end of last year, one, that they were yet again dismissed quickly, but how many players started barking? It's almost as if, I know they're popular and they have their YouTube and podcasts, and my God, they should do that. But I'm just, it never ends with them. How many are barking and sometimes even questioning teammates? It just doesn't make any sense. Is DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, are they good now? Didn't they have a little back and forth to do?
I think so. That's true.
It's like heat of the moment stuff too, though. Like you're in a playoff game and you're losing, and
I'm talking about afterwards. I'm talking about the week or so after that game.
Yeah,
they had a little bit of finger pointing going on, which again, that might be just because they're pissed off. I get it. Mm-hmm. All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Is Flau'jae Johnson's brother out of jail yet?
I don't know. I got to check to see if we get the bond posted. Not sure.
We
Look, there the bond posted. Look at that. Now he's a Kimite.
No.
Yeah. Also, by the way, tomorrow we'll have a couple of college basketball analysts join us in the 5 o'clock hour. A few more guests that we'll lock in between now and then. Thanks to those of you in the chat room. Still cannot believe that Retired Stockbroker blocked our call to get him on the air with Tom Herman. That just doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah. He's very opinionated in the chat room.
Yeah, I really, that one I would like. I'd still pine for the days we really missed out on having Bill Callahan when he was with the Cowboys, because I wanted Smokey to be like, do you know what you've done to my life?
Yeah.
Do you know what you've done to my life?
Yeah.
I just want you to look me in the eye and tell me that you know.
Yeah. I don't know if he cared.
It's like one of those things on Dr. Phil where he brings back, do you know what you've done to me? I just need you to know and apologize. That's all I want. And then I can move on. Acknowledge my trauma.
Yeah, that trauma's been lasting a long, long time ever since those years in the early 2000s. No question about it. Thanks to Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie, Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 on the CW, presented by GXG. By the way, if you haven't hit like and subscribe, please do. We always appreciate that. Thanks again to the Super Chat from earlier today with S. Michael DeHart on how we were trying to weave and maneuver through all of the crazy when it comes to college football and some topics. For Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Again, thank you. 365 Sports, good night.